I know Jeff would avoid it. We're the outliers here.
Yeah. Michael, hold
We're
on.
the models that go around
Outliers
in
are delicious.
the circle. They sure are.
Killing me. Michael Baker, hashtag Hey Eric, your title, Pinball Wizard. Is that an official title?
Two-time world pinball champion, former #1 rank in the world, #2 rating in the world. You could call me a pinball wizard. Sure, why not?
John Howard wants to know about Manatee County flooding. We're bouncing back and forth between weather and just less serious topics.
Really,
anything is on the table.
It really all depends on where you are. 2 to 3 foot storm surge along the Manatee County Islands, Anna Maria, Whitney Beach, maybe. But if you're a little bit further inland, I don't see this being a huge river flood event as we saw with Ian.
We have a comment here from AZ in our comment section, Rebecca. And Eric, I want to get your perspectives on this. Hurricane parties.
Inland, after you've properly evacuated and taken care of all of your preparations.
Gotten through your checklist.
Yeah, you put on ACD riding the storm out and rock on.
AC/DC.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know what? AC/DC, there's a good pinball machine. Rock out to AC/DC while you're playing the AC/DC
Some REO
pinball.
Speedwagon, riding the storm out.
The 80s
Wow.
music.
Yeah.
Now we can hang. You and I, we can hang.
We can't eat pizza together, but we can hang.
No, right. No pizza at our hurricane party.
When I got the
But
phone call that we're going
your
to
husband, me, and
potentially
my
10 to
wife,
15
we
feet
can
of storm
hang.
surge.
Thunderstruck.
Bring your pinball.
Put that in perspective.
I'll
That's
be the
3
fifth
foot
wheel.
higher than what was
My
predicted
pinball
for
will be my team.
Hurricane Ian in
Other
Fort Myers
questions
Beach.
and comments.
So please,
Let's get to some others.
heed the warnings.
Really, just
if you're in
being a
that Big Bend
reflection
area,
of our
your
comment.
emergency
Wow.
managers are calling for an evacuation. Please do it. I was on the phone again with Levy County, John McDonald. He is greatly concerned about Cedar Key. 12 to 13 feet of storm surge there. We've got to act, and we got to act now. We have launched our state assistance information line, or also referred to as the cell line. That's number is 1-800-342-3557. Again, that's 1-800-342-3557. Residents can call the cell line and find out about how to prepare before, during, and after a hurricane, road closures, alternate routes, available open shelters, shelters designed for medically dependent individuals, and reentry information once it is safe to return. You can also, of course, get up-to-date information on our website at floridadisaster.org/updates. I know that we were with the CFO, and I would reiterate what he said earlier today. Take pictures. Take pictures of your home now. See what it looks like now before the storm is here, so that, again, when it happens, if you have damage, you then take pictures. You have before and after pictures. Taking pictures of the interior portion of your home as well, not just the exterior portion of your home. And then please do not be taken advantage of after the storm. Make sure that you are you don't do any cash transactions, you don't sign anything. If you've got any type of issues when it comes to insurance, you can always call the CFO's office at 1-877-MY-FL-CFO, and he will certainly help you out through all of that. So please heed warnings, do smart things. Please evacuate right now if you need to do so. And again, Governor, as always, thank you for your leadership on this.
All right, listening in to officials here speaking in Tallahassee as we give you another live look at our radar here, tracking these conditions. Hurricane Idalia intensifying now as it heads towards Florida. That system is set to become a Category 3 hurricane. Right now, it's a Category 2 with powerful winds and dangerous storm surges in parts of the Gulf. You heard officials there talking about the concerns of flooding and the message to people to be prepared and to know that this is very serious. We want to go out live now to Fox's Madison Scarpino, who's joining us live from St. Petersburg, Florida. Madison, how are conditions right now? What are you seeing between earlier this evening up to this hour?
Hey, Lexi. Well, when it comes to the wind, it's really slowly intensifying. Rainfall on and off, but we know, of course, really in the next hour or so, things are going to start to really ramp up. People here just anxiously awaiting landfall, trying to figure out what they're going to do if the damage is as bad as expected. And of course, as of yesterday, there's been several counties ordered to evacuate. And according to the National Weather Service, there's over 5 million people under a hurricane warning. So some really scary stuff for the state of Florida. And Lexi, you mentioned those storm surges. That perhaps is the biggest concern with all of this. A storm surge of up to 12 to 15 feet is possible in some of the Big Bend region. Another thing that's not working in Florida's favor are the ocean temps. Hurricanes thrive on warm water, and the Gulf of Mexico's water has been hotter than normal for weeks now and really acting as a fuel for Idalia. There are currently 49 counties under a state of emergency, and Governor Ron DeSantis has deployed thousands of National Guard members to help with storm relief efforts. You, of course, just heard him talking in that press conference. Him, other officials, very concerned. And people here in the St. Pete area, they say this is always a stressful time of year. That peak hurricane season, not necessarily anything new to Floridians, but some say that a lot of people don't take these warnings serious enough.
I think we're golden. Eventually, maybe not. And this, on the beach, certainly on the west side of St. Pete, this will have an effect. It'll have an effect St. Pete, Clearwater, all the way up. There will be property damage. There will be flooding. There, hopefully, no loss of life.
Now, at least for this area, for downtown St. Pete, Lexi, we're still seeing people walking out and about. We're seeing cars on the road. Hopefully that changes, though, through the night, because things are, like we've been saying, expected to be extremely dangerous. But I have to say, at least a lot of people are taking that evacuation order seriously. The hotels in this area, packed to the brim, completely sold out. You see people coming in with loads of bags and boxes, their pets. So a good call on their end. And again, all just kind of anxiously waiting to see what happens and if this area will be spared.
Yeah, Madison, you just touched on a lot of really great points there. I've been asking different reporters we've been talking to throughout the day in different areas how people are responding to this message that they keep getting from Governor DeSantis and from other officials. And it's good to know that people are taking it seriously here. And you mentioned, too, this is a stressful time of year. Not that long ago was Hurricane Ian. How are people reacting to being in this situation yet again?
Yeah, so like I said, people from Florida, hurricanes are no stranger. And this area specifically has not gotten hit by a major hurricane in decades. Of course, Ian, Irma happened to pass over. Of course, they still had some dangerous effects. But when you talk to business owners specifically, they reference Ian and just the worries that they have behind what this hurricane's going to bring. I talked to Madeira Beach beach house rental company yesterday, and they also have houses in the Fort Myers area, and they lost dozens of those houses. So he says this time they are prepared. They're getting ahead of the game by doing all they can to protect the houses. So I think it really was a lesson learned, the impacts of Ian for not only business owners, but just people who live here, vacationers, as for how they're going to handle this hurricane coming.
All right, Fox's Madison Scarpino live in St. Petersburg. Madison, as always, great reporting. Great to hear from you. Stay safe out there as you continue to bring all of these great updates for us.
Thank you, Lexi.
All right, let's take this moment to take a quick commercial break here. 8:30 Eastern is your time right now. We still have so much more coverage. Our crews are going to be staying up throughout the evening into the early morning hours, bringing you all of this live coverage, tracking Hurricane Idalia as we follow the very latest. So I hope you stick with us as we bring you all of this live coverage. We're going to take that quick commercial break and see you back in 2 minutes on the other side of this.
First person to stain my shirt gets $100.
Really? Easy money. Are you sure? Don't worry.
Are producing, tide levels of a good 3 feet, maybe even a little bit more than 3 feet. And so, you combine that with storm surge and, you're looking at those coastal flooding areas. Even if this storm was 50 miles to the west, we'd still be dealing with storm surge. If it was 100 miles to the west and it was a Cat 5, we'd still be dealing with a lot of storm surge. Again, it depends on the distance away from the coast as well as the strength of the storm.
Not sure, Lil Patty, what you mean by this comment. Maybe Eric, you want to help me out here? It says #AJB or Eric opinion. Do you think a tornado is close to an inland hurricane? What does she mean by this? Are they similar?
Basically, a smaller. So tornadoes are over land, right? And so hurricane is out in the Gulf of Mexico over water. So she's comparing basically a landfalling hurricane to a tornado that's over land. I mean, two totally different things. The only thing that you can't predict exactly where a tornado is going to form until you see the rotation within the thunderstorm. But you can predict a lot better where a hurricane is going to make landfall and impact areas. But no, I mean, you can't confirm, a hurricane versus a tornado or compare that,
One of the biggest differences between a hurricane and a tornado, other than just sheer size and completely, just different methods of development, not to mention the fact that hurricanes help spin up tornadoes, but also too, tornadoes are very short-lived. What's the average lifespan of a tornado on the ground?
In Florida, very short-lived.
Really short, right?
You ask folks in the Plain States in Tornado Alley, and you could have tornadoes on the ground for several minutes, but usually, I mean, it really all depends. You're looking at an EF5 that could be on the ground a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour. And you're talking about the difference really in a tornado is you're getting devastation in a very small path, right? With a hurricane, your devastation, I mean, you go from Naples Beach all the way northward to Punta Gorda and Northport, that's a long area of devastation, right? Compared to the path of a tornado that could be a mile wide, not in Florida, but in the plains, Oklahoma, Alabama, maybe even up toward the Midwest and Iowa. So again, a tornado can actually have winds way stronger than a hurricane, 250 to 300 miles per hour, and it's in a one confined spot, right? Or within that mile of imagine having a wind of 250 miles per hour, a mile wide. And just, it's like a steamroller. It's just complete destruction. So you'll see, I toured Tuscaloosa and Joplin when I moved out to Florida in 2012. And I saw, have you ever seen tornado? Have you ever been anywhere after an EF4, EF5 has hit?
Well, I'm trying to remember the tornado that I covered, and I had hold on.
Basically, in Alabama, I'm looking at a field, right? It looked like looked like several football fields. But you know what? It was a neighborhood. It was a neighborhood because you would walk off the road and you would see steps that lead down to nothing. You would see
yes, that I
the pool that it used to be a pool and nothing. And then in Joplin, I believe it was an EF4 that hit. You would actually see, I remember seeing one house that all that was left was the bathroom.
Yep.
And their stuff was still there. And a hospital was literally, and I believe Jim Cantori, someone on the Weather Channel, was there, and the hospital actually shifted. It actually shifted in a circle. I mean, it was crazy. And I see, when you see that kind of devastation, you don't typically see a hurricane causing that kind of devastation. Now, the water you do, right? There was houses on Fort Myers Beach that were floating. Things were floating. But I tell you, tornadoes, they level things, man. 250 miles per hour in that small area, and I say 1 mile being small compared to the size of a hurricane.
I did storm chasing one time in Alabama, and actually it was so much storm chasing, it took us to Pensacola, Florida. I'll never forget this. Storm chasing is not storm chasers. They have a certain makeup. I think it's fair to say, and just like being a live streamer, where you have to have a certain, like we're all built differently,
right?
And I wasn't I've done hurricane coverage. I've been out there in flooded areas. I've done a lot of different storm coverage. But let me just tell you, being a storm chaser and documenting tornadic activity and documenting the aftermaths of tornadoes is a completely different job description, okay? And I did it one time. I kind of tested it one time for a station that I was working at, where I was basically working with a team that was chasing a particular it was a severe weather station or a severe weather situation. It took us to Pensacola, and it was at night. I think that was the part that was the part that gave me the chills the most, because being able to see a tornado is scary enough, but knowing that one is out there and knowing that you have a touchdown and you can't see it, that's when things are particularly terrifying.
And I tell you, JB, it's scary when you see. Because, people say, oh, man, this tornado destroyed, or this hurricane. It's just like Jeff said, you haven't really been in a major hurricane unless you were in Fort Myers last year, right? Or something along those lines. And when you see the effects right after a tornado hits, and you see, like, buildings and cars, I mean, everything, it's like Tinker Toys, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe this. And then you get emotional about it. I mean, when I went to Fort Myers Beach after Ian last year, I literally had a tear in my eye. I was like, oh my God, like, this is where I used to come. This is where I used to eat. And until you see something like that, you really don't understand the destruction of a tornado or of a hurricane.
No, you have a different understanding of it when you see it in person.
Yeah, versus TV.
That one day that I did, that one time I did it, the sun came up, and I did a live report for the CBS station I was working at the time. And I was standing on the front door steps for a home that was wiped away. Yeah. There were concrete steps that went up, and right where the front door would be is basically where I was standing on that doorstep, and there was no house. It was just obliterated and gone. And so, look, bottom line is we're gonna end out our 8 o'clock advisory live stream with this from Mortimer. #Hey Eric, will you be updating us on any tornado development? We're going to have coverage on WFLA.com in our newscast tonight on WFLA News Channel 8, because tornadic activity is expected over the course of the coming hours with Idalia.
It's definitely possible, yeah.
It's certainly, it's certainly possible. And it's one of the things that, even though the storm is out at sea in the Gulf, those spin-up tornadoes could be happening inland here in the Tampa Bay area and elsewhere on the peninsula.
Yeah,
as well.
and I don't know if you remember Hurricane Cristobal. It was early in the season, and it came up from Mexico, and it was in the Western Gulf. Do you remember there was a tornado in downtown Orlando? I was watching the live coverage. I was in Fort Myers watching it. The live coverage from one of the stations in Orlando showing a tornado in downtown Orlando from a hurricane that is way further west than this. This was way out in the western Gulf of Mexico, heading toward the Texas-Louisiana border, and it spawned a tornado in downtown Orlando, even way east of us. So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility.
It's really important to note. Tornado watches, tornado warnings. Listen to those warnings. So just be careful out there. This isn't meant to cause any fear in anybody or anything like that. We're giving harrowing accounts of our experiences with tornadoes, because they're just different than hurricanes. They're apples to oranges. They're completely different. But if you get a tornado warning, and look, it will blast through on your phone, even if your phone is in silence mode or in sleep mode. It will blast through your phone tonight. Just be on the ready and understand your plan for what happens when a tornado warning is in effect. It's just really good for us to remind our audience that you have to take it seriously, moving to an interior room and just taking all the necessary precautions to protect you and your family. Because I think that there are people out there that are resting a little bit easier tonight, looking out their front window. Oh my God, it's barely raining. I don't see anything from Idalia. And
we do on radar.
Not knowing that also, too, that an outer band could swoop in soon. And then also as well, there's always the potential and the possibility for a pop-up tornado, spin-up tornadoes. So it's just something that we really have to caution
And
our
we're
audience.
talking about the tornadoes that we see in the Midwest and the Plain States. We don't get the EF4s, EF5s, thankfully, here in Florida. But even an EF0 that's spun up by, Idalia can do a lot of damage. So you want to stay away from your windows, go into your room, as JB said, and, we're going to ride this thing out with you, all the way through tomorrow.
Yeah. So with that, we are going to be keeping our live stream activated, but we have to pivot and get ready for Noticias Tampa Hoy at 9 o'clock. We're going to be hopping off stream, just stepping away from the microphone. We'll be leaving our live stream up on WFLA.com as well as the WFLA YouTube page. But please allow me to explain our coverage plan going forward. I have been given a direct order from management to rest.
Okay.
And you have to.
I have to.
This is news. I'm breaking news to you.
I like when they tell me to go to sleep.
Yeah, that's basically what we have been told to do, folks. We would love to be with you guys on live stream all night. Just caffeinate up and be cups of coffee, Red Bulls, or whatever it would take, and just be with you guys on live stream all night. But we have done an exhaustive amount of coverage here on stream going back to Sunday. It is now Tuesday night. And we don't take commercial breaks. These are long live streams, and we do our very best to be at our best for you. But management has given us the directive to go home. The reason being, we'll either go home or to rest up, depending, of course, on where we live and travel advisories and being safe. We're going to figure out exactly how we're going to get our rest. But let me explain. We are needed for landfall coverage tomorrow. That is why. Basically the powers that be here at WFLA, they want us on live stream, of course, for that moment. And the moments really when we have Idalia moving ashore, because that, of course, is going to be the most catastrophic impact or moment, really, rather, over the course of this event. So that is going to be happening tomorrow morning. And if we go all night, and you guys get the gist, I don't need to explain it. But the idea is that we are going to be taking a break from the live stream tonight to get some rest and then be back early tomorrow morning for landfall coverage. The exact time to be determined. I might be able to provide that in a little bit. I'll tweet it out on my @WFLAJB Twitter. I'll tag Eric as well. Might be able to put it on Instagram, Facebook, and other platforms too. Don't know what time our coverage will resume tomorrow morning, but the plan is for Eric and I to be able to provide landfall coverage for you here on Tracking the Tropics from the Stream Center. So we hope that everybody is understanding of that. We'll try to keep the live stream channels open so that you guys can continuously talk back and forth with one another. But that is the coverage plan going forward as we get ready to bow out for Noticias Tampa Hoy in Espanol. Any final comments here, Eric, before we wrap up?
Look at the wobble tracker. It looks like it's wobbled back to the west right over the red line.
That storm surge is expected to continue. Some areas potentially seeing historic flooding throughout this. So continuing to bring you all of these updates live as they're happening. Our team here going to continue to take you through these updates as well throughout the evening, live, raw, and unfiltered, and into the morning. So nonstop coverage here of Hurricane Idalia. Let's take a quick commercial break. More of this to come in 2 minutes.
Becca, Amanda, Lee, Val, our entire weather team, and also this is just a quick look. There's a lot that teamwork makes the stream work, and I just have to shout out the news department, our digital team, Nathaniel. I'm looking at them out there. Casey, Kevin, Nathaniel, Rachel, Dylan, others in our newsroom that are actively, Caitlin, Athena, Colleen. There are a lot of people in our newsroom writing up the very important articles and also, too, sending out the alerts to help keep you and your family safe. These are people in our newsroom that just deserve to have it, at the very minimum, just have their names heard on this live stream. And I'm forgetting Sarah as well. Can't forget Sarah. That really, our digital team is top notch. And then lastly, an enormous thank you to our moderators, Michelle, Chelsea, Team Brittany, D, Yaya, all you guys. Guys are just terrific. Thank you for being here with us for extended coverage and keeping our comment section kind and welcoming as all. Saw Duty Ron pop in earlier. That's an event, man. I hope Duty Ron's okay. I've been meaning to reach out to him. He's a friend of mine. A lot of great people out there that join us in the YouTube live community that help make WFLA the special destination that it is. So thank you so much for joining us on this live stream here, folks. I do not know when the next live stream will be, other than I can assure you that in about 12 minutes from now, Noticias Tampa Hoy will be live streaming on our website and on the local airwaves here in WFLA's market, the Tampa Bay region, on Great 38 coming up at 9 o'clock Eastern. I'm serious. If you know somebody in the Tampa Bay area that really only understands Spanish, please let them know. Shoot them a text, a Facebook message, a DM, tag them. Just let them know. It could help them, especially if they have family up in the Big Bend area, just trying to get out really helpful, potentially life-saving information to people, regardless of their preferred language. Thanks so much for joining us here on Tracking the Tropics. We will be back tomorrow morning, Eric Stone and I, for landfall coverage tomorrow morning across all platforms as we continue to monitor all the
officials continue to send this message to residents that you need to be prepared and that you need to evacuate depending on where you live. Now, this storm has packed very high winds already this evening, and as this intensifies, that is only expected to get stronger and to continue to get worse as it goes through Florida. Again, most of these impacts expected overnight into tomorrow morning, the early morning hours. Parts of the state's Gulf Coast could expect life-threatening storm surges when the storm's winds push the ocean on shore. So we've been continuing to bring you all of these updates from our teams on the ground, also checking in with different experts talking about the very latest. Let's pull up a couple of tweets here on the latest that we are getting into our newsroom right now. This first one from Fox 13's Paul Delgado saying, tornado watch until 6 a.m. Wednesday. Bands of thunderstorms rotating around Idalia will move inland tonight. A few of them will be rotating, resulting in a tornado threat. And you can see some of the areas that have been highlighted there. We also have this tweet from meteorologist Matthew Capucci, who we spoke with earlier this evening about conditions, and he says this: just like that, Idalia has punched out an eye. What goes up must come down. To get an eye eroded by dry, downward sinking air, you need to have lots of upward moving air in the eye wall. Idalia is now a 105 mile per hour Category 2 and still has another 12 plus hours to strengthen. So still some time for residents to try to get out. We heard from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis earlier saying that you have to try to get out now and listen to those warnings before it becomes too late, before these conditions worsen. And you can see as the hurricane continues to make its way and advance towards Florida. In the meantime, we've been checking in with our teams at Fox 13 in Tampa, at Fox 35 in Orlando. We want to take you out to some of that coverage from our team at Fox 13 here next on Live Now from Fox.
Up next, we're going to answer some more of your viewer questions.
Fox 13 Tampa Bay, special coverage of Hurricane Idalia. Please stand by. Our live coverage will resume in just a moment.
So we caught them right as they were going to a break there. In the meantime, we want to take you out to where we heard from FEMA officials earlier today at the White House press briefing, speaking on the latest on how they're preparing their message to people in the areas that are going to be most impacted. Let's continue listening in here. Live Now's Andrew Kraft is coming up on the desk here next. Continue to stick with us as we bring you all of this live hurricane coverage.
Peak hurricane season. In addition to responding to the current storms, as well as other incidents, we have to remain focused on making sure that we are also preparing people across the nation for these types of extreme weather events. I did just come from the Oval Office where I briefed the president on the trajectory of Hurricane Idalia and what the impacts are projected to be. And I want to just give a quick update on the preparations that we are making in preparation for the response in Florida, as well as other states that are in the path of Hurricane Idalia. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to speak with Governor DeSantis. I also had an opportunity to connect with South Carolina Governor McMaster and Georgia Governor Kemp to help understand what their concerns were and to identify any unmet needs that they may foresee. And we'll remain in close contact with all of them in the hours and the days to come as Hurricane Idalia makes landfall and moves across these states. As the president said to Governor DeSantis in his own conversations yesterday, FEMA and the entire federal family are activated to support the people of Florida. The president also quickly approved an emergency declaration in advance of the storm in Florida, turning on the many tools that are available at my disposal to provide the governor any support or resources he may need in advance of landfall and then after. This allows me to pre-stage people, equipment, and resources in Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, and I have done just that. We have pre-positioned different types of resources across all 3 states to include several incident management assistance teams, our urban search and rescue teams, our disaster survivor assistance teams, and they are all ready to pivot to the most impacted areas immediately after the storm passes. We also have warehouses filled with commodities like food, water, blankets, and medical supplies that are ready to rapidly move into the impacted area at the state's request. But we are not in this alone. We have an entire federal family that is postured to support. Our National Response Coordination Center here in Washington, D.C. is fully activated, and this means that there are several hundred staff from across the federal family that are working together to support any requests for federal assistance. We have our partners from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers who are pre-positioned to support any power restoration needs. Health and Human Services is assisting with evacuations from hospitals and assisted living centers. And the Red Cross has 50,000 meals to support the immediate needs as requested and has pre-staged shelter support to supplement the 19 shelters that are already open by the state. And this is a really important point that I want to talk about next. It's on preparedness. And again, I really ask for all of your help to help me ensure the people in the storm's path get this message. While we are engaged with our states to prepare for the path of this storm, it's critical that the people that are in the path of this storm are also prepared. And I know that the people of Florida are no stranger to storms, and I encourage all Floridians to take this storm seriously. This storm is very strong and is expected to strengthen to a major hurricane by the time it makes landfall due to high surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. This means heavy winds, high winds, heavy rain, and a forecasted 12-foot storm surge in some of the areas along the western coast. This storm surge, this is one of the highest risk parts of a hurricane and is especially problematic along the west coast of Florida due to the underwater geography. The coastal shelf gets shallow very quickly, which increases the amount of the storm surge, putting more people at risk. Very few people can survive being in the path of major storm surge, and this storm will be deadly if we don't get out of harm's way and take it seriously. So I ask all Floridians to be vigilant and heed the warnings of your local officials. Have a plan to communicate with your family and your loved ones. Charge your cell phones, your batteries, any devices that you may have, and ensure that you are receiving emergency alerts. And most important, please listen to the warnings of local officials. If they tell you to evacuate, please do so immediately. And remember, you don't have to evacuate far. If you are in a storm surge warning area, it could mean just traveling 10 or 20 miles to get out of the most significant impact areas. It does not mean having to travel hundreds of miles to get out of the storm's path. And finally, we are all in this together. I ask that you check on your neighbors, especially those who are older adults, people living with disabilities, or may need additional assistance. But before I close, I want to provide an update on another topic that has been widely reported in recent days and asked by many of you, FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund, which as of this morning has a balance of $3.4 billion. So today, I am directing the implementation of immediate needs funding. This means that FEMA will prioritize available funding for critical response efforts to Idalia, the Maui fires, and any other extreme weather events that may come our way without interruption, while continuing to meet the immediate needs of survivors through the remaining weeks of the fiscal year. I want to repeat, we are prioritizing funding for Idalia, for the Maui fires, and any other extreme weather events that are coming our way without interruption. And I want to stress that while immediate needs funding will ensure we can continue to respond to disasters, it is not a permanent solution. Congress must work with us on the supplemental request that the administration has made on behalf of FEMA. And you are going to hear more from me on that soon. My primary responsibility at FEMA is to ensure that we are always postured to respond to any disaster and to provide the life-saving and life-sustaining support when needed. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Can you relate what you talked about with Governor DeSantis, and add any details about what coordination you're undertaking with Florida officials?
Yes, when I spoke with Governor DeSantis yesterday, my main question is always, what are your main concerns? What are the areas that you have the greatest concern about? And do you have any unmet needs or resources that we can bring in? He shared with me what his posture at the state is going to be and where he has some great concerns. And we are working and embedded with his staff. And I assured him that we have teams working side by side with our colleagues, our emergency management colleagues there at the State Emergency Operations Center to be able to quickly respond as needed.
Can I ask, following up real quick, what were those concerns that he had at that time?
He shared with me the concern, again, about people taking this seriously and being able to evacuate as a result of the storm surge. He has concerns about the vulnerable populations, right, and making sure that we are providing any assistance we can to help them get out of harm's way.
You mentioned the supplemental request after getting a fuller idea of what has happened in Hawaii and with this storm threatening, a severe impact. Do you anticipate raising the level of that supplemental request as you start to negotiate it with Congress?
Right now, the supplemental request that we have put in is $12 billion, and that will be a bridge to get us through the end of the fiscal year. If we continue to see more storms, we're going to continuously monitor very closely the health of the Disaster Relief Fund to determine what more may be needed. But right now, as the situation stands, the supplemental request will get us through the end of this fiscal year.
In some places, there is frustration with institutions.
All right, you have been listening there to FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell at the White House briefing today. And of course, if you were watching yesterday, we spoke to Administrator Criswell yesterday about FEMA's preparations for now Hurricane Idalia. And we want to just show you now, we're at the top of the hour, 6 o'clock here on the West Coast, 9 o'clock there in the Sunshine State. Nighttime now has fallen there in Florida. Take a look at some of these images, some of these live looks we're getting all across the state there. They're at Tampa International Airport, which remains closed because of this hurricane. And so we're going to be kind of cycling through a lot of these live pictures to show you what the conditions are looking like as well. We're also going to be relying a lot on Fox 13 Tampa and Fox 35 in Orlando for their coverage. They have reporters posted all across the state as we watch these conditions, as we wait for Idalia to make landfall. Let's go out to Tampa right now.
Really start to focus in on what these bands are doing, because any one of these can really spin up that quick tornado. We do have that tornado watch that has now been issued essentially for our entire viewing area. That goes until 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Makes sense. Anytime you have these tropical systems, you have those bands, they always have that ability to spin up that tornado. And they move very quickly as well. So quite often when you see these, they're not that strong, but sometimes they're moving 40, 50 miles an hour. So by the time you get that tornado warning, they have moved a really far distance very quickly. So here's the view on Sky Tower radar. You can clearly see the eye. Now you're seeing that band. We've been talking about this for a couple of hours. We've had this nice quiet lull here for several hours. Now we're going to start to watch some of these bands working their way along the coastline. Inside of these, that's where you have that torrential rain. You also have some of those strong wind gusts where we're going to start to see some of these winds gusting up to tropical storm force in these bands as they work their way onshore. But right now from, say, Manatee County down towards Bradenton, up towards Anna Maria, and then stretching down through Sarasota, Osprey, down towards Venice, all the way down towards Punta Gorda. You can see it is sitting just off the coastline. You're already starting to see some of that moderate, in some cases, some heavy rain. But as you get into some of these oranges and reds, that is that torrential rain where you're going to see some of the strongest winds as well. And it's really not going to take too long for that to brush up along the coastline. And then you see the motion with these is they just kind of spiral around the center. We're going to start to see some of this working its way through Pinellas County. You're going to start to see some of this up into Hillsborough County as well. This extends south of Sarasota, so you're going to see for a time, depending on how this band sets up, it could be an extended period of some pretty strong winds and just getting hammered by this band. That's also where some of that rain, the amounts can really pile up pretty quickly as well. Extends all the way down to just off the coast of Fort Myers. Other than that, you see to our north, it's quiet right now. Had some storms earlier. Those were actually spinning over Orlando and the eastern side of the state. The enhanced satellite loop. Now that the sun has gone down, we switch from the visible to a infrared, where we're actually looking at the temperature of the clouds. So when you see these darker colors, that is indicative of colder cloud tops. The higher they go in the atmosphere, the colder they get, and that's also stronger. So that's where you're seeing some really strong storms wrapping around that eastern side of the storm. And then you can see the center where it's clearing out. You get the warm air right in the center of it, and that's why you see that donut look right in the middle of the storm. So here's the new 8 o'clock advisory issued an hour ago, 26.9, 84.7. Top winds have increased now to 105 miles an hour. Additional strengthening is expected with this, and it makes sense because we continue to see that pressure falling, currently sitting at 965 millibars. So as that pressure drops, the wind goes up. In the system, it's moving to the north at 16 miles an hour, just ever so slightly to the east of north. So that forecast track has been really pretty spot on with this. There will be those little minor tweaks here and there, but basically we're talking about it heading up into the Big Bend area and then working its way up into Georgia and eventually up into the Carolinas as well. Winds are starting to come up down in the Sarasota. You're seeing those winds gusting right now to 32 miles an hour, but as that band continues to spread on shore, we are quite likely going to start to see those winds at least gusting to tropical storm force, if not sustained tropical storm force winds in that. Now, as far as the tides, that's going to be an issue, not as much tonight. Certainly we will have some issues with that down to our south because the center is now working its way a bit further to the north. But as we go into tomorrow and the center of this is to the north of us, that wind will be coming from that south and southwesterly direction. So you see those tides on the screen, and that is when we're going to see some of that strong surge as well, where you see up into the Big Bend, 10 to 15 feet. So that is certainly life-threatening storm surge up in that area. And that even extends down into portions of Citrus County and then down into Hernando and Pasco County along the coastline. Storm surge 6 to 9 feet. And then along Pinellas County and then up into Tampa Bay. Possibility of up to 4 to 7 feet and lesser amounts as you head down to the south. Some needed rain. We certainly don't need the wind. We don't need all the severe weather, but we've been in a pretty severe drought here on the West Coast. And so that'll be the one positive you can take out of this, is it will give us some of that rain that we desperately need. We just didn't want to get it this way. So we're going to continue to watch this, and we will keep you updated on this, obviously, throughout the overnight hours.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And as Jim pointed out with the storm surge map there, high wind and catastrophic storm surge are the two big threats for the Big Bend area of Florida. That's where Hurricane Idalia is taking aim right now for landfall. The small town of Cedar Key on an island in Levy County ordered its hundreds of residents to evacuate, all of them. About 900 people live there. with the storm surge forecast to be high enough to flood the first floors of homes and businesses.
I tell them to leave. Everyone. I'm firm on that. That's what the county said, that's what the state said, and that's what my director said. Leave. So I am not to deviate from that. Because we want you to be alive.
And as we were there, we saw dozens of state troopers going door to door to make sure that everyone knows that the evacuation orders are in place for Cedar Key. But we did hear from a few people earlier who said they're going to ride out the storm on the second floor of a motel.
We continue our county-by-county coverage this hour in Pinellas County as Idalia turns up Florida's west coast. We'll be watching the water levels. Fox 13's Justin Matthews joins us live tonight from Clearwater Beach. Justin, we know it's getting dark out, but tell us what you're seeing out there at this hour.
Well, Haley, I know Jim Weber was just telling us about those outer bands making their way into our region. It's definitely indicative of that out here in Clearwater Beach. We just saw a huge flash of lightning. We're hearing some rumbles of thunder. It's a little windy. The rain is starting to pick up. And I know it is dark, but behind me is the ocean, and you can kind of see the white caps. I don't know if you can see it because it is so dark, but, you know, the waves are really starting to pick up. We're hearing the crash of the water, and, yeah, definitely indicative of the weather starting to deteriorate. But take a look at Clearwater Beach earlier, just I don't know, a little before dinner time, I should say, when we were out here, and people were on the beach with their families, checking out the conditions, admiring the waves, you know, something you don't really see here in the Gulf too often. And of course, there were plenty of surfers taking advantage of that as well before the sun went down.
There's a really narrow window and that's why you see so many people out here right now, because the forecasts do a good job of telling you when it's a good idea and when it's not, if you know what you're looking for. So the surfing period, from what I saw online, is going to be from about now, if we're lucky, until dark, and then don't be anywhere near the water.
Yeah, and driving around Clearwater Beach and Pier 60, it really feels like a ghost town where we are in a mandatory evacuation zone. Shops and restaurants are all closed. Sandbags line the entrances of all the businesses. And it's much quieter out here at Clearwater Beach than it was even an hour ago. It really cleared out. There's not much traffic. There's not many people out at all, which is good because we are in that mandatory evacuation zone. And there is a hotline. If you do have any questions about the storm and you are in Pinellas County, there's that hotline that's available for you 24/7. We have our number up on our screen. It's 727-464-4333. Any questions you have in Pinellas County, definitely call that hotline. Haley?
And that is good to hear that people are heeding the warning, clearing the streets, trying to stay off the roads. We saw a lot of people out there earlier in the day with those waves, kind of curious what the conditions were like. But certainly now is not the time to be out there checking it out. We're doing our best to keep people informed so they can stay inside. But we appreciate the update out there, Justin. Stay safe. By now, the time has passed to leave your home and find shelter. Officials in Manatee County held a briefing earlier this evening to discuss evacuating, staying informed, and the safety measures that have been put in place. Take a listen.
We have put in place today our 7 first-in teams strategically placed throughout the county. What these teams are is Public Works, Fire, EMS, law enforcement, to open up the roadways if we have downed trees. Florida Power and Light, Preco Power is with them, so they're in place. Earlier today, Public Safety and our transportation team helped evacuate 116 patients from a downtown assisted living facility to one of our county general population shelters. Please don't wait until the last minute. Now is the time to evacuate. As Director Fisk said, evacuate tens of miles, not hundreds of miles, but now is the time to do this. We do not know yet exactly when or what the storm's going to do. We know we're going to get surge. We know we're going to get rain. We're worried about flooding. The thing with the flooding is the majority of that surge and flood comes after the eye of the storm has gone by. So there'll be a delay of those flooded roads, as it's been mentioned by the chair and the director. If you cannot see the roadway, do not drive through the roadway. We've already been in communication with all the cities, the island communities about the roads being flooded, what our actions will be. If a road is flooded, it's closed.
That was the Deputy Director of Public Safety for Manatee County. And a reminder for all Manatee County residents tonight, if you haven't already done so, they are urging residents to sign up for their alerts to be informed with any and all safety notices during and after Hurricane Idalia.
And turning now to Hillsborough County, South Tampa in particular, you know, we've seen Bayshore Boulevard flood when a tropical storm rolls through town. So there's a lot of concern about what we will see there with this hurricane pushing water into the bay. And let's go now live out to Bayshore Boulevard. Fox 13's Jennifer Veglas joining us now. So Jennifer, what does it look like out there now?
I'm standing right in front of the Davis Islands bridges, and just in the last 15 minutes, we felt wind speeds pick up just a bit, and it's only drizzling, and we're still seeing people out here on Bayshore Boulevard getting one last little stroll in. But earlier today, there were much more people taking their dogs for a walk, going biking, and enjoying the breezy conditions before the rain picked up. Now, one man who lives on Harbor Island says he took the precautions needed ahead of Idalia making landfall.
We are in a condominium, so we are higher up, and so, but we prepared, like I said, to stay in. But yeah, it's a concern. Always be prepared and you know, stay informed.
Now, just 1 hour ago, Hillsborough County Fire Rescues closed their stations in Evacuation Zone A. So that's stations like 15 and 31 in the town and country area. Those units have been relocated to surrounding areas. But this is your reminder that if you do need emergency help during the height of the storm, first responders might not be able to respond.
That's a great point there. Jennifer Veglas, by the way, this is always awkward when you meet a new coworker for the first time in a dual box during hurricane coverage, but that's where we find ourselves here. Welcome. Welcome to Fox 13 in Tampa Bay. Great to have you here. And, you know, you come with a lot of experience in covering storms, too. Fortunately or unfortunately, you were from Fort Myers, right?
Yes, I was there.
All right, we thank Fox 13 Tampa there for their really incredible coverage as we are also here on Live Now going to be speaking with some of those reporters in the field. As you can see, the winds are picking up. The rain is coming down. Take a look at our X-Red weather system here. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, you heard there updates out of Hillsborough County, updates out of other counties in the Tampa area specifically. When we come back, we'll get an update out of Pinellas County. We'll see you in 2 minutes. As a Category 2. We're being told it's going to be making landfall, possibly as a Category 3 storm. So we've been talking to officials up and down Florida's west coast. We want to do just that right now. And Ashley Giovanetti, she is the Pinellas County lead public information officer. She joins me now there from Pinellas County. Ashley, I know you're very, very busy. It's going to be a very long night for you guys there in Pinellas County. But right now, I know you've held a lot of press conferences throughout the course of the day. Are we going to expect another update later tonight?
Well, we're going to be having, updates from the National Weather Service all through the night, and we're going to be checking with them consistently. Really, we want people to stay in their safe space. We want to make sure that after the hurricane passes and all of the impacts have passed, that they are going to be very safe and watching out before they go outside. We are still going to see potentially some flood impacts in our area, and we want to make sure everyone is staying safe. We also want to make sure that if people are seeing power outages, which is very likely in the coming hours, that they're not calling 911 for those power outages, making sure that they call their local utilities departments for those outages.
I also wanted to ask as well, what would be your advice right now? Because we're talking about evacuations, and, as this sometimes happens, some people don't heed those evacuations. If some people are watching this right now who have not evacuated, who want to ride this out, what would you tell them?
Well, I wish they would have evacuated earlier, but for those that end up seeing rising water or they get into a situation that is detrimental, do call 911. Even if we have emergency services that are not on the roadways because maybe the winds have reached too high that they cannot be on the roads, that doesn't mean that 911 services can't assist people. So please, even if you think that it's too late, if you're finding yourself in an emergency situation, please call 911. But like I said, if you just want to say that there's a power outage in your area, please call your local utilities department.
Yeah, that was some of the guidance we've heard, not only today, but also yesterday, that if it does come to it, and if you do call 911, that's going to be very, very busy. Sometimes you won't get the help you need, or you might get it, but it will be delayed because so many people might be calling 911. I want to talk as well, because we were just 11 months removed from Hurricane Ian in this same part of Florida. When you see the preparations being made yesterday into today, is Ian on the minds of so many, folks you work with, your neighbors, your family, your friends?
Well, look, we live in Florida. We felt some of the impacts from our neighbors and saw what they went through, and we really have empathy for them. And I know that's in the hearts and minds of everyone as they're going through these storms. But every storm is different. Every impact is going to be different to different communities. We are ready and prepared to help our neighboring communities if needed in the coming days, weeks, months. But right now, we're really focused on making sure people are safe.
Ashley, I just got to ask lastly, have you been outside recently? What are you seeing there in Pinellas?
We are seeing some of those rain bands, and we are potentially going to see some of that flooding and some of that storm surge. So really, we're just asking people to, get to higher ground if necessary, but don't go outside unnecessarily. Don't put yourself in more harm's risk. If power goes out, there could be potentially power lines that are in flooded areas, and that is really dangerous. So we just want to make sure everyone's taking those precautions. Again, if power goes out, making sure that your generator isn't in an enclosed space, having that generator outside or in a well-ventilated area, because that can be one of the number one reasons for fatalities during and post-storm events.
Yeah. You know, like you said, I mean, people there, folks in Florida, they do this each and every year. There is a playbook. It is being carried out as we speak. I guess just lastly, Ashley, what does your gut tell you right now? I mean, how are you feeling about this storm?
Look, it's always hard to predict.
Okay.
My gut is telling me that I just hope everyone is safe.
Yeah.
I really hope that people took their preparations seriously, that those that are in the low-lying areas and in that mandatory evacuation zone A and mobile homes got out, especially those mobile homes. I feel for those residents that are going to be seeing those gusts and those winds. So I really just, my gut is I really hope those people got to safety or able to continue to get to safety. And if something detrimental happens, that they still call 911. If lines, heaven forbid, are getting clogged up, that they continue to call 911.
Okay. Ashley Giovannetti, we do appreciate your time. We know you're very busy, and thanks so much. Talk again, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we're going to continue, of course, with all of our coverage here, 24 hours now, as Hurricane Idalia makes its way up the western coast of Florida there. We were just listening into some of the folks there in Pinellas County giving an update about what they're seeing, what they're telling residents, saying, and that's kind of been the line all day. People are hoping that residents there in Florida in these evacuation zones have heeded those evacuations. I want to just show you this new live picture we just got. Take a look at this. I know it's in black and white, but this is a new vantage point. Obviously, nighttime has fallen there. You can see, though, the camera getting impacted by the winds there, the rain coming down. This is courtesy, thankfully, of the Florida Department of Transportation. That is a live shot right now of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Tampa, Florida. There, as you can see, Idalia became a hurricane today. It's at a Category 2, and the National Hurricane Center warning of an increasing risk of life-threatening storm surge and dangerous hurricane-force winds there in the next couple of days. So you can see the camera kind of teetering up and down there because of the winds. You can kind of make out the rain coming down as well. But just a new picture that we got there. And that, like I said, that is the Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Tampa, Florida. Let's take a quick commercial break. We were just speaking there to Ashley Giovannetti from Pinellas County. We want to replay for you the latest update out of Pinellas County when we come back. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox on this very busy Tuesday night, especially for the state of Florida, as the entire nation, all of you watching the track of Hurricane Idalia making its way up the western coast of Florida. I'm Andrew Kraft. Take a look at this shot there. You can see You know, I think a lot of people watching this right now, they see that it is nighttime, and so now, you know, is it the calm before the storm?
Hey, Andrew, well, it really was right before dinner time. There were a lot of people out here in Clearwater Beach kind of enjoying, kind of checking out the conditions. I know it's really dark, but if you can see behind me, we're on the beach and you can kind of see whitecaps. The waves have really started to pick up as the outer bands of the storm are making their way into our region. The weather is starting to deteriorate a little bit, and you know, we don't usually get waves in the Gulf. For those of you who know it, a lot of people kind of compare it to a lake. So seeing these whitecaps, seeing the waves forming here is definitely indicative of that this storm is getting closer to our region. But take a look at, like I mentioned, what Clearwater Beach looked like earlier today, right around dinner time, when people were on the beach, they were with their families, they were checking out the conditions and really admiring the waves, something you don't see in the Gulf too often. And of course, there were plenty of surfers taking advantage before the sun went down.
There's a really narrow window and that's why you see so many people out here right now, because the forecasts do a good job of telling you when it's a good idea and when it's not, if you know what you're looking for. So the surfing period, from what I saw online, is going to be from about now, if we're lucky, until dark, and then don't be anywhere near the water.
Yeah, that's good advice. Don't be anywhere near the water, especially now, because it's not a good place to be. You know, and just driving around Clearwater Beach. I mean, look, this is a huge tourist destination, and it kind of feels like a ghost town. We are in a mandatory evacuation zone. Shops and restaurants are all closed up. There are sandbags that line the entrances and to all the businesses there. So yeah, again, not a good place to be here on the beach. We are in an evacuation zone. There have been some Clearwater Beach police officers that have been going around, just kind of talking to people about the dangers. You know, about an hour ago, there were a lot of people here, and that's just not the scene here. There's no traffic. A lot of people have left the area, which is good. And if you are, you know, living in Pinellas County and you do have questions, there is a 24-hour hotline that you can call, and that the number is 727-464-4333. So weather deteriorating out here, Andrew, and we're just, you know, keeping our fingers crossed that everyone's properties stay safe, really.
Yeah. Justin, I got to ask though. I mean, you don't see any surfers out right now, even though it's nighttime, because that one you spoke with, that one you spoke with, he was pretty bullish on the waves.
Yeah, yes, he was. I mean, there were a lot, and you know, again, many surfers taking advantage. But he did have a really good point about after the sun went down, the water, you don't want to be anywhere near it, which was, you know, a really poignant thing to say, because I know you can't really see it because it's so dark out, but the waves have picked up a lot in the past hour and a half, and you do not want to be out there. It would be very dangerous.
Yeah, and speaking of the waves, though, what about like the wind and the rain? Have they picked up? How long have you been there?
Yeah, so we've been out here since about 4:30, I'd say. And in the last hour and a half, that's when we started to notice some more rain, the wind picking up. Some of those outer bands are starting to make their way into our region. And yeah, it has made the weather deteriorate, but nothing too concerning as of now. You know, it is a little breezy. It has picked up. We're getting some gusts. We saw one flash of lightning about 30 minutes ago. You know, nothing too concerning there. I think just the sound of the waves, the crashing, that has become louder. It's been consistently sprinkling. You know, there's some palm trees behind me. I don't know if you can see those. They're just kind of blowing in the wind a tiny bit. But looks like the weather for now is staying pretty calm. But, you know, as you said right before I came on air, it still is kind of the calm before the storm. Yeah. And as these outer bands start to make their way into our region, it's going to start to deteriorate a lot.
All right, Fox 13 Tampa's Justin Matthews there in Clearwater Beach, Florida. I learned something new. I didn't know we don't really see whitecaps that often in the Gulf. So everyone's learning a lot about hurricanes, especially as we wait for Idalia to make landfall there. Justin, as always, thanks so much. Stay safe.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, let's keep it moving here. We do want to just take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, we do want to let you listen in to the latest press conference and update from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and his emergency management deputy, Kevin Guthrie, there. They've been updating us throughout the course of the day. We're going to let you listen in to the latest when we come back. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox on this very busy Tuesday night. Everyone has their eyes right now on Hurricane Idalia, now at a Category 2 storm, making their way up the west coast of Florida. Take a look at this tweet because we're going to hear from Florida Governor DeSantis in just a moment. He says, "My Florida Department of Transportation has nearly 700 team members strategically positioned across the state with more than 400 pieces of heavy equipment ready to begin immediately clearing roads as soon as it is safe to do so." So, speaking of that, take a look at this shot here, there in Tampa, of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. You can see there, you see the wind really picking up, the rain coming down. I know it's in black and white. It's about a little after 9:30 there in the Sunshine State. Let's go out to Tampa just briefly, if we can. We heard from Mayor Castor there earlier today about what Tampa, specifically the city, is doing to prepare for Idalia.
Anywhere to go out in the bay, so it's going to stay where it is at. We were advised yesterday on our 5:30 call that there could be as much as 4 feet of water on Bayshore Boulevard for in excess of hours. So those are the things that we all need to be cognizant of. Stated again, it's been a century since we've taken a direct hit, and we all become a bit complacent in that. So this is the time to heed these warnings and make sure you're out of the way of that storm surge.
And this may be a question for Chief Burkhalter, but last year during Ian, we saw people on Bayshore, you know, the water was sucked out and all. Is there any plans in place to maybe have law enforcement there keeping people safe? Or is it at your own risk, go out and, you know, see what's happening?
Right. We try to discourage everyone from going out there if the water is pulled from the bay. And there's a high likelihood that is going to happen again with this storm, is that the water will be pulled out before it comes back in with a great deal of force. So please, please, please don't go down on Bayshore if the water is pulled out to take photos. You put yourself and others at risk, and especially think about the police officers that are out there working hard and all of the issues that they have to address right now. They shouldn't have to address individuals walking out on the empty bay.
Mayor, I have what is, and this might be a question for first responders, but what is the threshold where they're just not going to come?
Yeah, it's still 45 miles an hour. 50 sustained winds, we won't go out. But also, again, none of our, we would ask that our residents don't factor that into any decisions that they make, because the officers are going to be busy with a number of different tasks, and they don't know how long it would take to get to someone, or even if they could. And we have all seen those news stories where individuals and families lost their lives because they waited too long and were killed by the water surges.
And based on the forecast, it's not a matter of if it's going to hit that threshold. It will hit that threshold.
It will right now. Again, things change. We were in the crosshairs of both Charlie and Ian, and they made a last-minute turn. So all of the forecasters are very confident in the path that this storm is taking now, and they have factored in the higher temperatures in the Gulf. So all of that has been factored into this storm, and they're confident on that trajectory, but history tells us that it's up to Mother Nature where that storm's going to go.
All right, Mayor Jane Castor there out of Tampa from earlier today with this update, and she was, hearkening back, citing what Tampa did, the preparations they made, and the response they had to both Hurricanes Charlie and Ian. Ian just 11 months ago. Let's keep it going here. We want to just show you this tweet yet again from Ron DeSantis, showing these trucks there from the Florida Department of Transportation, 700 team members strategically positioned across the state with more than 400 pieces of heavy equipment ready to begin immediately clearing roads as soon as it is safe to do so. And so we want to talk about trucks again even further, because they're going to be deployed to restore power. They're going to be deployed, like the governor said, to clear the roadways as well. We want to talk about this right now with Fox 35 Orlando reporter Ariel Placencia. We've been checking in with her throughout the day. She joins us now. And Ariel, thanks so much for being with us. I know you have been out there for quite some time, but what are you seeing right now?
Well, let me say what a difference an hour makes. I mean, we have steady rain falling now. The wind has certainly picked up. The sun has obviously gone down, and those roads are getting wetter and wetter by the minute. In fact, I know we were just hearing from the mayor here in Tampa. Well, the city also is now advising residents and reminding them to please stay off the roads, because if you think they're wet now, unfortunately, they're only going to get worse as the night goes on. Now, you talked about a lot of trucks. We have a lot of helpful trucks on standby. So let me start with the National Guard, because just about an hour of where I am now, north in Hernando Beach, local crews are getting prepared for overnight flooding. The Florida National Guard has been fully activated with the mobilization of 2,500 guardsmen. They have 6 deep water rescue vehicles, I'm told. Those can go deeper than regular fire trucks, and they are ready to be deployed to impacted areas whenever they are called upon. Now, crews are also preparing for power outages, with hundreds of trucks staging at Tropicana Field, which is where the Tampa Bay Rays play in St. Pete. That's west of where I am now. And linemen have come in from all over the country, over 1,000, I'm told, ready to respond if and when they are needed. Now, obviously, the mayor, as you just heard in a press conference, expecting maybe 4 feet of water, she said, on Bayshore Boulevard. That storm surge is something that we're very concerned about here. Officials predicting maybe between 4 and 7 feet, which is a significant amount of water. Of course, how will the roads handle that? The city says that they have crews on standby and also going around now, making sure that there are no obstacles, debris in the roadway, trying to keep them as safe as possible. But again, reminding people to stay off them as the night goes on and that storm just moves closer and closer. I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Ariel, and I can tell the rain is coming down and the wind is picking up there. Do you see anyone out and about? I know there must be some media next to you, but have people really heeded these evacuation warnings? Are they staying inside? Have they left for the most part?
You know, you might be able to hear the road behind me. We're on a busy road over here, and there are a few cars out and about, but I can't say, you know, it's been a steady stream, right? It's been kind of the same amount of people that have come out all night long. Officials certainly hoping that it stops as the night goes on. As you have any storm, hurricane, tropical depression, tropical storm, you have people who will listen to those evacuation orders and do, but then you do have people who choose to stay in their homes. Officials not advising that at all, but we have done interviews with people who have chosen to stay. Again, Hurricane Ian taught us a lot, that a storm can change direction and can change quickly. And so we'll see what happens with this one, certainly hoping for the best and preparing for the worst.
Yeah, and Ariel, I apologize. I queued you up there as a Fox 35 Orlando reporter. You're there in Tampa, and we apologize for that. But I've been asking a lot of reporters throughout the course of the day, you know, whether or not they have a history of covering hurricanes and whether or not this one feels different. Can you offer any thoughts on that?
Great question. I actually used to work in North Carolina, and so I covered a few hurricanes in North Carolina. Also used to work in Texas, so covered a few hurricanes and tornadoes in Texas. And I think that every storm is different, as anyone would tell you. People prepare in different ways. This one seems to be moving pretty quickly. People do seem to be listening to the warnings. It was interesting to see the cone and the path, and so we'll just have to see how this all plays out and how people ultimately respond as the storm just gets closer and closer to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I mean, those dreaded words, the cone of uncertainty, I think that entered the lexicon last fall when Hurricane Ian made landfall there in Florida. But like you said, these storms are so unpredictable. They can change course in just a matter of moments before making landfall. We're going to be tracking it alongside you guys there at Fox 13 in Tampa. Ariel, thanks so much. Stay safe out there.
Thank you.
All right, let's take another quick commercial break. Like I said, when we come back, though, we do want to hear from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and many of his emergency management officials with their latest update from today and what they are telling Floridians about what they need to know for Idalia. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Jason, I'm seeing that the tornado warning is no longer on here. I'm wondering if they just canceled it. They just canceled it?
A weekend below severe limits.
Okay, so that's great news. Okay, and I see that in the chat too. So the tornado warning, good news here for South Central Arlington, East Central Fairfax counties and the city of Alexandria has been canceled. The storm prompted the warning. No longer appears to be capable of producing a tornado, therefore it's been canceled. So when I hit reset there, okay, we have a live shot of Alexandria near Holmes Run Park. So let's head to that live shot, because even though we no longer have a tornado warning there, we have, you know, rainfall amounts that are moving through this area that are going to continue to produce the potential for flash flooding out there tonight. So you can see a live look there. Not much wind coming from this picture, but notice the rainfall there. I mean, an absolute deluge, an absolute soaker. So when you get heavy rain moving through urban areas, especially at this time of day when so many folks are on the road trying to get home from work or get out to after school activities, picking the kids up from camp, you know, you can have flooding very easily with these rainfall rates. So again, this is just an absolute downpour. We're seeing very little wind from this live shot. And the biggest concern, as I've said, area-wide tonight is going to be flooding. So as we head back to graphics right now, I want to show you the severe weather outlook. We'll hit reset, and then we can probably continue on with the newscast, but I'll let Danielle, our producer, let me know the plan here. So here's the severe weather outlook for tonight. And this is why we're in weather alert mode, okay? Biggest concern, heavy rain area-wide. Downpours leading to flash flooding in spots, which is very concerning. If you can stay at home tonight and avoid traveling, that's going to be the way to go. We have strong winds, potentially gusting up to 60 miles an hour, and a few isolated tornadoes are also possible. I've already covered 2 tornado warnings this afternoon, one for Charles County that was allowed to expire, and one for Alexandria, parts of Arlington and Fairfax counties that's also been allowed to expire. That being said, still tracking extremely heavy rainfall. Flood watch is in effect for the DC and Baltimore metro areas through the very late hours tonight through 2 a.m. on your Tuesday. This includes parts of Loudoun, Fairfax, Prince George's, Montgomery, Howard, Anne Arundel counties, the district, Arlington, and Alexandria. We have a very serious flash flood warning in effect until 8 o'clock tonight. This includes the district down through Woodbridge and Quantico, back through Fairfax and the city of Fairfax. So again, this flash flood warning is in effect until 8 o'clock tonight. We also have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 5 o'clock for parts of the DC metro area and areas to the south. But we're seeing a ton of lightning out there right now. So much lightning passing over 95, over 301, down through the Leonardtown area. Looking at some of the heaviest rainfall right now, again, it's from the district, pretty much the entire city right now getting in on this rainfall, and then continuing south towards the Waldorf area, toward Mechanicsville. We also have that severe thunderstorm warning in effect for parts of St. Mary's and Calvert County. So here's a look at the bigger picture. Again, a warm front's moving through, and as I kind of alluded to earlier, warm fronts, they're not as neat, they're not as tidy as a cold front. A cold front moves through, you have the storms, you have the change in wind direction, you have temperatures typically lower, typically humidity will drop as well. Warm fronts, well, they can continue to produce storms, to produce heavy rainfall until they're well out of the area. So we're waiting for a warm front to live through tonight, and then a cold front moves through the area tomorrow. As that cold front moves through the area, we'll call our chance of thunderstorm, well, our chance for thunderstorms, I should say, will dwindle. So stepping out, timing out future weather for you. We have a new flash flood warning for Arlington and for Arlington, Fairfax, and Alexandria. Does this one go until 8 o'clock? 7:45. Until 7:45. So where that severe thunderstorm warning was, we now have a flash flood warning there. I want to show you future weather. So we have this storms, the heavy rain continuing to move through. And this could be one of those nights where we still get heavy rain in spots overnight tonight. Look at 2, 3 a.m. Still tracking downpours into parts of the area. Tomorrow morning, it's starting off dry. As we head toward the afternoon hours, though, we'll see showers and thunderstorms develop as the actual cold front moves through. So let's head to this new flash flood warning, because this is something that, again, you always have to take very seriously. So we have, let me take off the severe thunderstorm warnings here so we can see where this flash flood warning is. And while I'm doing this, An and Leon, if you have any questions, anything that you're hearing, I'm happy to kind of chat about what we're dealing with on this Monday afternoon, another Monday afternoon where we have severe weather moving through the area, and the latest being a flash flood warning that includes the district, parts of Arlington, Alexandria, the city of Falls Church, parts of Prince George's County. That's going to go until 8 o'clock tonight.
So I know that this is a fast-moving system, Amelia, and there have been a lot of changes. So both the tornado warnings are now expired, right?
Correct. We don't have any tornado warnings in effect. At this point, I think the biggest concern with the warnings out there are going to be the flooding, because flash flooding, you can't prepare for it. If you're in your car and you happen to be in a low-lying or poor drainage area, the water rises so quickly. This is where folks get trapped. So timing this out with the evening commute, I mean, this is less than ideal, unfortunately, for folks to kind of trying to be winding down their day and dealing with flash flooding.
And what's so dangerous about the flash flooding is it doesn't have to be raining where you are for you to be caught in it, right? It can actually be raining someplace else, and it just happens to flow or build up where you happen to be. Correct.
If you have, kind of the drainage, kind of coming towards your area, that can certainly be the case. I'm hearing, Anna and Leon, that we also have live pictures out there as well now.
I believe this is the Largo shot here with one of our crew
Prince
cars.
George's County, right? You can see the rain coming down. Talk about the rain and what that's going to look like for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, that's great. A great question. So for the rest of the evening, this right now is going to be our main event. We're going to continue to deal with this heavy rainfall through the DC metro area for about another 20 minutes out there. We'll still, though, have rounds of rain out there tonight. We're going to have the potential for still some heavier rain into spots during the overnight hours. While these storms will take a lot of energy out of the atmosphere, they're not going to take all of the energy out of the atmosphere. Typically we'll have storms move through, and then the rest of the evening's rather quiet. Tonight's a night where we could still have some downpours, some heavy rain in spots after this first wave moves through. For instance, just looking at the radar back into parts of the panhandle of West Virginia around Martinsburg, still seeing some heavy rain there. But again, the heaviest rainfall right now falling around the district down through southern Maryland. But as you brought up, it's not just, this isn't the only rain that we're seeing tonight. We could have more rain into the overnight hours, and then we'll have some scattered showers and thunderstorms out there tomorrow. I'm not seeing tomorrow's severe weather threat as great as today. But again, today, you know, it's the straight line wind damage, the potential for a few isolated tornado warnings, and again, really for everybody, the heavy rainfall is going to be a really big concern out there.
Looking at the camera shots that we've had in Largo and also in Arlington, the winds don't seem to be very, very strong or heavy, at least in these areas.
Right.
And looking at the radar, it seems like these storm systems are moving through so quickly.
Yeah.
They're not carrying that much heavy wind along with them.
Yeah, thankfully we're not seeing a ton of wind, and I think the National Weather Service did a great job this afternoon issuing the flood watch that's in effect for the Baltimore and DC metro areas. Again, with these rain events, we're picking up 1 to 3 inches of rain an hour. And we're seeing some flash flooding in spots. What's that, Jason?
DC, Montgomery, Prince George's flash flood.
Yeah, okay, so we have added on to our flash flood warning now. So this flash flood warning, guys, just keeps getting extended right now. It goes from Prince William into the district, into Prince George's through the evening hours. We're headed to break. We'll have much more coming up throughout the rest of the evening. But again, we're tracking some flash flooding out there tonight and the potential for a tornado as well.
Many gutter companies overpromise and underdeliver. Gutter Helmet by Ledner Home Solutions strengthens, fastens, and protects your existing gutters to withstand all weather conditions. Call 8885-HELMET today for your free estimate. And for a limited time, get 50% off installation.
When migraine strikes, are the trade-offs of treating worth it? Ubrelvy is another option. It quickly stops migraine in its tracks. Do not take with strong CYP3A4 inhibitors. Allergic reactions to Ubrelvy
have folks that are going to be able to help you out with that. We've deployed almost 250 Starlink internet devices. We have another 500 plus staged and ready to go, and we'll likely be putting those into place soon after the storm passes by. Many school districts have announced school closures for today and for tomorrow. So please just check with your county, but if you're in the path of this storm, it's a pretty good bet that the schools are not going to be open tomorrow. We also have 18 state colleges and 6 universities that are not having school tomorrow as well. As the winds become stronger today and into the night, Florida Department of Transportation will be coordinating with FHP and local law enforcement to close bridges once wind speeds reach 40 miles an hour or more. So just keep in mind with that, with any plans that you have, once the wind gets to a certain point, those bridges are not going to be safe to traverse, and Florida Highway Patrol will work with local officials to make sure that people are kept safe. We have been in contact with many states that have offered their assistance, and we're grateful for their efforts. We've already have National Guardsmen from both Tennessee and South Carolina. I want to thank them for stepping up and helping us out. We also have called up 33 ambulance strike teams with over 200 ambulances that are ready to surge in any of the impacted areas.
Legal Counsel for the Elderly champions the dignity and rights of Washington, D.C. elders by providing free legal services to those most in need.
Arrive on shore sometime tomorrow morning, most likely, and it is going to have major impacts, particularly along Florida's Big Bend region. So listen to your local officials, take the appropriate precautions to protect you and your family, and once the storm passes, we will have help that will be on the way in the form of power restoration. We were able to go to Wildwood in Central Florida to meet with all the Duke Energy personnel that have been pre-staged there to help with Duke Energy and their power restoration efforts. We've got close to 30,000 people that are in the state of Florida staged for power restoration efforts. So that's going to be a priority to be able to get the power back on for folks. Obviously, search and rescue to the extent that's needed. Those guys are going to be ready to go. And Kevin and his team have a lot of staging of
regions and counties right now.
Water, the things that people need when normal services are interrupted. So everybody hang in there. This is going to be something that will leave significant impacts, and particularly in this part of the state, you really got to go back to the late 1800s to find a storm of this magnitude that will enter where this one looks like it's going to enter tomorrow. So we don't really have a historical analog in anybody's memory. So it's likely to cause a lot of damage, and that's just the reality. So be prepared for that. Be prepared to lose power, and just know that there's a lot of folks that are going to be there to help you get back on your feet. Okay, we're going to hear from Kevin Guthrie.
Thank you, Governor. Good evening, everyone. As the governor has said, it's crunch time. We're down to the wire. Hurricane Idalia will be making landfall tomorrow morning. Some parts of Florida are obviously already feeling those impacts. We're seeing a lot of videos and still pictures coming out of Southwest Florida, specifically in Fort Myers Beach and those areas that were impacted a year ago. Again, want to let those people know that we're going to be there as soon as we can get to you guys tomorrow morning. We will have some of our southern staged assets in there to help you guys and evaluate some of that damage. If you haven't evacuated, you're north of Fort Myers, you're up into the central Gulf Coast, northern Big Bend area. If you have not evacuated, you need to do that right now. You need to drop what you're doing. You need to go to your room, pack up, pack your things, and get to safety. If you need power, you need to get to safety. You need to evacuate right now. We are going to experience historical flood surge up into the Big Bend area. This is nothing to be messing around with. We were in the vehicle traveling with the governor when I got the phone call that there was going to be potentially 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. Put that in perspective, that's 3 foot higher than what was predicted for Hurricane Ian in Fort Myers Beach. So please heed the warnings. If you're in that Big Bend area, your emergency managers are calling for an evacuation, please do it. I was on the phone again with Levy County, John McDonald. He is greatly concerned about Cedar Key, 12 to 13 feet of storm surge there. We've got to act, and we got to act now. We have launched our state assistance information line, or also referred to as cell line. That's number is 1-800-342-3557. Again, that's 1-800-342-3557. Residents can call the cell line and find out about how to prepare before, during, and after a hurricane, road closures, alternate routes, available open shelters, shelters designed for medically dependent individuals, and reentry information once it is safe to return. You can also, of course, get up-to-date information on our website at floridadisaster.org/updates. I know that we were with the CFO, and I would reiterate what he said earlier today. Take pictures. Take pictures of your home now. See what it looks like now before the storm is here, so that, again, when it happens, if you have damage, you then take pictures. You have before and after pictures. Taking pictures of the interior portion of your home as well, not just the exterior portion of your home. And then please do not be taken advantage of after the storm. Make sure that you are you don't do any cash transactions, you don't sign anything. If you've got any type of issues when it comes to insurance, you can always call the CFO's office at 1-877-MY-FL-CFO, and he will certainly help you out through all of that. So please heed warnings, do smart things. Please evacuate right now if you need to do so. And again, Governor, as always, thank you for your leadership on this.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Governor, for your leadership and for your support of your Florida National Guard. Director Guthrie, thank you for your tremendous work and of your team, the great work you're doing to ready our state and to protect Florida citizens. The Florida National Guard is fully mobilized with over 5,500 soldiers and airmen deployed or deploying. We are ready to provide humanitarian assistance, search and rescue, route clearance, and security missions throughout the area of operations, in partnership with our state and local agencies. Over the past 48 hours, the Florida National Guard has been positioning personnel and units in strategic locations near expected landfall areas to assist impacted counties as rapidly as possible. The Florida National Guard's response efforts are organized around 4 task forces. Task Force 53, our main effort, is operating in the western coastal counties with 1,600 guardsmen. Task Force 164 is prepared to support counties in the central and northeast Florida with over 1,200 guardsmen. Task Force 83 is prepared to provide aviation support for search and rescue operations and commodity distribution. And Task Force 50 is prepared to provide transportation, sustainment, and communication support with over 1,100 guardsmen as needed. In addition, we have guardsmen currently manning state logistic response centers and other warehouses with over 200 guardsmen throughout the state. We're supporting over 20 county emergency operations centers with liaison specialists and we continue to work mission requirements prior to landfall, including setting up Tiger Dam containment systems around Manatee County Hospital. The Florida National Guard currently has on hand 2,400 vehicles available to include high mobility and high water vehicles, 14 rotary wing aircraft, with additional aviation assets coordinated with neighbor states through mutual aid agreements, and 23 small watercraft to support search and rescue operations and delivery of supplies in flooded areas. I shared Governor DeSantis' remarks, and I want to thank our neighboring Guard states for their assistance and willingness to provide additional assets during this critical time. And lastly, I'm proud of the quick response of your National Guard soldiers and airmen, and know they are grateful for the opportunity to serve the citizens of our great state. Thank you.
Okay.
I am Colonel Brian Smith, Director of Law Enforcement for Florida Fish and Wildlife. And Governor, I want to thank you for your leadership and support during this emergency, as well as Director Guthrie, your support to FWC and making sure we have all the tools we need to get this job done. FWC has the officers and equipment and experience, as well as the training, to be effective in the immediate hours following a hurricane. We want to remind everyone, just as has been said before, please heed any warnings, and if you are in evacuation zones, please evacuate. FWC has staged 2 rapid response teams just outside the projected path of Idalia, with nearly 50 personnel, and emergency response equipment. We'll be bringing high-wheel vehicles and boats capable of negotiating this high-water environment, and our officers are well-versed with the necessary precautions in this post-storm environment. FWC will be there to help everyone. We're coming to help you along with our brothers and sisters and first responders. We're honored to be called upon to assist with this, and following our immediate response, we'll have the resources and personnel to assist in recovery efforts for as long as we're needed. And thank you again, Governor, for all your support and leadership.
Okay.
I'm Colonel Gary House with your Florida Highway Patrol. FHP has approximately 300 troopers statewide on standby, ready to assist and respond as needed as the impacts of Hurricane Idalia are felt. Currently, we have approximately, again, 300 troopers on Alpha Bravo shifts. In other words, 12-hour shifts that are rotating with no days off in preparation for the response to the storm. Our troopers are maintaining high visibility along our interstate highways and all our evacuation routes, especially our interstate rest areas. We're coordinating with our local sheriff's offices, and we're assisting specifically in Taylor, Dixie, and Levy counties, and notifying residents in evacuation areas to evacuate and heed that warning. We're coordinating with our FDOT partners, monitoring our roadways and our bridges to make sure they're safe for travel. As the governor mentioned, once speeds reach up to 40 miles an hour, we're going to shut those causeways and those bridges down. So now is the time, as Director Guthrie said, now is the time to heed those warnings and evacuate if you're in an evacuation area. We're going to continue to monitor, and we advise you to also monitor your local emergency management officials and local sheriffs and follow their directions as they put out releases and directions for you to follow as the storm approaches and the impacts are felt. After the storm passes, I would encourage you not to go out and sightsee. Give first responders room to work, room to respond, and room to assist those in need. As you travel our highways, if you become disabled, your vehicle becomes disabled, try to get out of the traffic ways. If you're unfortunately involved in a collision, try to clear the roadway and dial star FHP or 347. Star FHP or 347 if you need assistance. And if it's an immediate emergency, always dial 911. Governor DeSantis, thank you for your leadership, your support of your Florida troopers and law enforcement in general. Director Guthrie, also thank you for your support. Florida has great leadership, and we're proud to serve with you. Thank you.
Okay, so be ready for impact. It's going to happen. We'll be prepared for losing power, of course, and we've been stressing that over the past many days. This could have really significant storm surge on those coastal areas alongside the Big Bend, and storm surge of this magnitude is not something we've ever seen in this part of Florida in any of our lifetimes. So please take the appropriate precautions and just understand that this is something that absolutely can be life-threatening if you were in one of those areas that is in the coastal or low-lying areas when you're met with this type of storm surge. Okay, any questions?
Quick question about to follow up on the insurance thing, because so many people are worried about it right now. What did you want to see that the legislature would not adopt in the current insurance reforms that we passed back in May?
Look, we can talk about the policy stuff. I mean, I think right now we're focusing on the response, protecting people, and then getting what we need to go there. And this is about execution right now. We obviously can have different policy debates when the time's appropriate, but this is what we have to do to be able to save lives, be able to respond, be able to get people back on their feet.
Can you kind of talk about how many people are heeding those evacuation notices? How many people are under those evacuation notices right now?
So I'll let Kevin jump in if I say anything wrong, but I mean, I think on Cedar Key, the vast majority have done it.
Yes, sir.
And I think that I don't think it's 100%, but I think it was a lot. I think it was a big percentage, and probably a bigger percentage in some of those really sensitive areas than happened in Hurricane Ian, with some of those areas that ended up being ground zero. Of course, I think there's been a lot more notice that this storm was likely to hit in this area compared to Ian, because I think we had some track shifts. So I understand how people process that. But we've been talking about the Big Bend now for a few days, and I think people got the message. And I think by and large, I think that they have heeded the advice. So I would say way more have heeded than have not heeded.
Obviously, the storm is going to be pretty significant for Leon County with all the big trees. We haven't had a big hurricane, if not ever. I guess, is the state contemplating a contingency plan if Leon County is not able to run properly for the long term? I mean, there's people saying we could lose power for weeks, months.
So we have spoken with the mayor and recommended that their utility accept the mutual aid, and I think he wants to accept it. I think he understands that could be useful. I think he understands that they want to get the power back on as quickly as possible. This utility here locally, has had some trouble on some of these situations with weaker storms in the past. I know in 2016. So we have the support here, and we want it to be used. So I think the city is going to welcome it. And that's why we have these people pre-staged, because we understand when you have a situation like this, I mean, hopefully nobody ends up in a life-threatening situation in Leon County at all. But even if some do, the vast majority of people are not going to be in that. The vast majority of people are not going to have their homes destroyed with this storm. But if they're without power for 2 weeks, I mean, that's not ideal. So we have the resources there. We want to bring those to bear. There will be some difficulty with all the trees, and there's going to be a lot of debris. We have our guys that are going to be willing to help with that as well. But we understand it's important to get this stuff going again. So there's a lot of resources available for both the county and the city to be able to help. And so we recommend that they take us up on that offer. All right, well, we will be here bright and early tomorrow, and we will be hunkering down here as the storm passes through this part of the state of Florida. Then once it passes, we're likely going to go down and be in the areas where you've had the most impacts and start the recovery, relief and recovery process as soon as this storm exits the state of Florida. Thanks.
All right, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sounding pretty matter-of-fact there, and you can tell he has done this before. He said they are going to have their next update on camera tomorrow morning, and then he said they are going to be visiting some of these impacted zones, areas, sites from the storm itself. Let's take a quick commercial break. I'm Andrew Kraft. So you were listening in there to Florida officials. That was their last update from today. That was earlier this afternoon. But we also know now that officials in Georgia there and in South Carolina, their respective governors have issued states of emergencies as well once this storm makes landfall and heads northeastward. So you can see our X-Rad weather system at the moment. You can see, look how big the eye of that storm is right there. Idalia making her way up the western coast of Florida. You can see there, really aimed directly at the Big Bend there. And so many of these towns and cities and counties we've been showing you updates in, Idalia has them in her crosshairs. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox on this Tuesday night there. It's about 10:15 all up and down the state of Florida. Take a look at this shot we have right now. This is out of St. Petersburg. You can see the rain coming down, the camera kind of moving because of the wind there, and you can see some of the whitecaps on the water there. So it seems to be picking up quite rapidly there in St. Petersburg, Florida as well. We also are going to be relying on some of our Fox 13 Tampa folks throughout the night here, especially there. Paul Delgado, the meteorologist who is guiding us through this storm about where it is going, how strong it's going to be. Take a look at our X-Red weather system as well as we continue to track all of Idalia's movements there as she is now a Category 2 hurricane. We'll make sure you know if and when Idalia turns into a Category 3 storm. And so you can see there the massive eye and the direction right now of where this hurricane is going. So we're going to leave that up as well. We're going to be getting much more detailed analysis and the trajectory of this storm from Fox 13 in Tampa as well. And then we're going to be speaking to affected residents in about the next 12 or so minutes. I'm going to be bringing on just a former friend from high school. He lives in Tampa. His flight was canceled. He was going to Europe, and he's going to be joining us on Live Now from Fox to talk about what he's seen, to talk about what he has experienced. We spoke with him about this time last year because Hurricane Ian made landfall September 28th. I remember it very, very well as a Category 5. You'll remember this, Idalia now as a Category 2. That could change in the next couple of hours. We're being told the storm's going to be making landfall sometime early Wednesday morning. And we'll be showing you so many of these pictures throughout the night up and down the state of Florida. Let's go out now to Fox 13 in Tampa with the latest.
Many families are, as we say, hunkering down right now. Fox 13's Lloyd Sauer spent the evening there at Pasco's Emergency Operations Center where they are gathering some real-time data.
Each one of our counties here in the Tampa Bay area is different, and here in Pasco County, they're different because they have two surges. One, the traditional storm surge along the coast, and the other, the river surge. That's why the first responders staffing this emergency operations center may have to work longer than most, because Pasco has inland communities like Elfers that can be very wet, even though it's not coastal. Their so-called second surge will come from the rivers that are fed from surrounding counties.
We're very unique here in Pasco County. We receive water from about 4 different counties during heavy rain events. Unfortunately, it dumps into one of our major rivers, or 2 of our major rivers. The one being the most serious problem is the Anclote. We could have a rain event, and it'll be up to 2 days later we start seeing flooding from the Anclote rising so quickly.
That's one of the reasons that sandbags are so important in Pasco County. They have handed out an estimated 250,000 sandbags, 250,000 sandbags here in Pasco, an amazing number. The traditional storm surge will occur as the storm approaches the coast, and then the second surge, the river surge, they expect around 12:30 or 1 o'clock on Wednesday. We're reporting from Newport Richey at the Emergency Operations Center. Lloyd Towers, Fox 13 News.
Okay, Lloyd, thank you. Coast Guard crews from Clearwater Air Station have moved to West Palm Beach for a staging area. This will allow them to quickly respond to emergencies during and after Hurricane Idalia. Fox 13's Justin Matthews is live for us on Clearwater Beach tonight. And Justin, we know that is one of the top tourist destinations. So we got to ask, have you seen a lot of looky-loos out there tonight?
Hey, yes, there were a lot of looky-loos much earlier, but right before sunset, a little before dinner time. But right now, kind of feels like a ghost town out here, which is kind of a good thing. It should be that way. The weather has really started to deteriorate. We just got a huge gust of wind. Had to catch my hat. We had some other things kind of fly out of our news vehicle. We got them. Everything's fine. But very different from what it was even just about an hour ago before I came on air around 9 o'clock. So let's go to some video though from earlier today. You know, when we were on the beach just before dinner time, as I mentioned, take a look at it. Take a look. There were a lot of surfers out. There were also people with their families just on the beach, checking things out, admiring all the waves. And I spoke with some people who were out surfing, and they say they're prepared for the storm, and they use the daytime hours to take advantage of the waves before conditions got too dangerous.
We're in Zone E, so we're in an evacuation by any means. Yeah, so we stocked up on water, all our supplies, we have all the extra chargers and all the necessary things. Kind of the same thing we did for Ian last year. So we're definitely all prepped for what's to come, but just trying to enjoy a little bit of peace and calm before the storm, I guess.
Yeah, and driving around Clearwater Beach and Pier 60, as I mentioned, felt like a ghost town even earlier before the sun went down because all the shops, all the restaurants were closed. We are in a mandatory evacuation zone. There are sandbags that line the entrances of all the businesses. Some of them are boarded up. So it was kind of eerie earlier before the storm was really hitting. But now back out here in Clearwater Beach, Jim and Paul, they've been talking about these outer bands making their way into our region. And the weather now is quite indicative of that. We just saw part of a palm tree blow by us. It's starting to get really windy here, so a big difference than comparing the weather to an hour ago. And again, as we're seeing, we're only expecting it to get worse out here.
All right, yeah, and we're looking at the live radar too with you up on screen right now, Justin, and we can see that those outer bands are right over you. So you guys stay safe out there, and thanks for all that reporting. We'll see you in a little bit.
Thanks, Allie.
Just had a gust of 49 in St. Pete. Getting there. Yeah, it's up there. So tropical storm force gust, pretty common now along the coast. Could get to 60 to 70 later on tonight. And the key is when those winds start turning to the south and southwest, when the water will start piling up later on tonight.
Right. Are you surprised we haven't seen, I would have thought we would have seen maybe more of those tornado warnings by now.
We're waiting. Don't.
No, I know.
Don't jinx it.
I know.
Because I tell you, they're very hard to cover. In hurricane situations because they move so fast.
Right.
And before you start talking about one spot, it's gone, they move 40, 50 mile an hour because they move with the circulation. So they're not fun to cover and they're not fun to prepare for because they can come up on you awfully quick.
So you were mentioning to make sure that you have your alerts on for that. You can have that on for your phone, right?
Yeah, and you'll get, there's so many ways you can get that through the Sky Tower app, the local warning system. The weather service has an alert system. Weather radio, that's still a very viable way of getting a alert. You want one way, or I should say multiple ways, where you're in bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, that someone wakes you up and an alert wakes you up just to let you know there's a warning for your location.
We know a lot of people have been watching us all day long, and I'm sure there's some fatigue out there that everybody has. But
this is the 49 in St. Pete.
There you go.
We got 43 in Sarasota, 26 in Tampa, and you know one thing that we're fortunate about, guys, when you look at that view, is enough of a wide berth of enough distance between our coast and the eye. It has kept us out of that really bad section of the storm. So you figure if you have a gust of 49 in St. Pete right now, imagine if that storm was 50 or 60 miles closer, we'd be talking wind gusts 70, 80 miles an hour now. So that's why that distance is critical, keeping it west of us.
And we're almost parallel.
Just about in our latitude. Right? I think on the 11 o'clock advisory, we're at 28.3 here. It's a little south of that, and it's moving along. So by probably 11:30, it's going to go by us.
And we've never had a Cat 3 this close to us, then, have we?
In a while. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So the worst of it, Paul. I mean, when people are sleeping tonight.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll be tomorrow. The problem is the storm is going to be up in the Panhandle, and the part of the storm that we're going to be in is going to be kind of like where these bands are going to come in from the Gulf, from the southwest, and then kind of go all the way up towards Ocala and rotate around. So even tomorrow, if we get ourselves in one of those bands, it's pretty nasty. And all day tomorrow, now the winds will be west or west-southwest, which means all day there's going to be high water, especially at the times of high tide.
Even if we have blue skies.
Yeah, I don't think we will. If we do it, it's going to be kind of mostly cloudy, maybe variably cloudy, but the winds will be gusty all day from the west tomorrow.
And wind-wise, I know you've said this a couple times, and it looks like that's playing out. We don't really expect hurricane-force winds in this area, right?
I mean, if one of the big squalls go by and we gust 70 to 75, not impossible, but to have the current wind speed in St. Pete or Sarasota to be 77 miles an hour, I don't think that's going to happen, but there could be a random gust in a squall. Inland, there's no concern at all about any sustained hurricane-force winds. That's important.
And right now, it looks like it's holding the track, right? Any significant
The track has been locked in. It really has. I haven't seen any deviation, and the only change was, and we talked about this 2 or 3 days ago. We said I think it's going to be stronger than indicated by the Hurricane Center, and it has been, but the track has been the same since what's today, Tuesday? Since Sunday night or Sunday?
Today's Tuesday, yeah. I know you've been in this for a long time, but really, I mean, we're lucky that it is far off the coast.
Very lucky, and there's no rule that says it has to go that far west.
Right.
Yeah, we feel bad for those in the Big Bend area, of course, who are going to be affected by this, because we know a lot of people will. And we're not out of the woods by any means. We got some water we're going to be watching here for the next 24 hours almost.
Yeah. Northern County, Citrus County will be closer to the center, and as the storm goes by, it continues to intensify. So you go north, it's stronger, and of course Cedar Key will have a big problem later on tonight.
All right, more patience and more. And the update 11 is coming up at 11 o'clock. We
another
expect to be
20, 25 minutes.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, Fox 13 there, and Paul Delgado there, meteorologist chief there, as he guides us through Hurricane Idalia. Take a look at our X-RAD weather system here. You can see as it barrels up the western coast of Florida near the Big Bend section, and a lot of these towns, cities, counties in Idalia's crosshairs. Take a look at this. This in St. Petersburg at the moment. You can see conditions really picking up there. You can see the rain, you can see the wind. We also just got this shot as well, and you can see this is just another illustration of the anticipation of this storm into the early evening hours here as well. We just got this new shot here. This is in Tampa as well. Idalia, of course, hurricane category 2, intensifying on this path toward Florida's Gulf Coast. And so that's just another live vantage point. We're going to be showing you a lot of live vantage points. When we come back, though, we're going out to Tampa as well, downtown Tampa. We're going to be speaking to some of these impacted residents there who are stuck now in this storm. They're going to wait this out as we watch Idalia move up the western coast of Florida and eventually make landfall early Wednesday morning. We'll be back in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. This is Andrew Kraft, and you're taking a Live Now look there at St. Petersburg, Florida, as we continue to track Hurricane Idalia there. Let's take a look at our X-Rad weather system as well. Now, remember, this very time last night, we were on the air, and Idalia was a tropical storm. So in about 24 hours' time, she has strengthened into a Category 2 and has worked her way up parts of the western coast of Florida. And so, remember, we have been reporting on all of these evacuation orders for millions of Floridians who are in the path's immediate direction. And remember, you know, the guidance is to heed those evacuation orders. There's always a few who want to weather this storm or who just can't get out because of logistics, because of circumstances, because of their location, what have you. In the meantime, though, I do want to bring into the conversation here my friend, Alex Ames. He is in Tampa, Florida, downtown Tampa at the moment. He is a resident there, and he joins us now. He's one of these impacted residents there. And Alex, thanks for being with us. And we can see your shot there looking right in downtown Tampa. Give us a sense of where you are and why you are sticking this out here, Alex.
Yeah, so I'm in downtown Tampa in Harbor Island, really right by the Amalie Arena where the Lightning play. And why I'm sticking it out, I did have a flight that get canceled out of Orlando. However, not a lot of other options. I mean, it looked like it was going a little bit west of Tampa. I mean, we still got people out here. Pretty tame right now, but who's to know what the next few hours are going to bring. So we're going to stick it out and see what happens.
Yeah, and Alex, you joined us last year because you were also in the evacuation zones for Hurricane Ian. Give us a sense. I mean, how is this different? Because it is very, very different from that storm last year, just 11 months ago.
I feel like last year's storm got a lot more hype. I did not see as much panic in the streets. Today was very eerily quiet. I did hear friends that went to different Publix's, Walmart's, that there were very long lines as far as getting supplies. But the overall feeling, this one I feel is a lot tamer than the last one, which, I mean, we'll see how it plays out.
And of course, I mean, where you are, I mean, is the rain coming down? Can you feel the wind picking up?
Yeah, since we last spoke about 10 minutes ago, it's definitely picked up and the rain is coming down. So this whole sentiment that I'm talking about could change here very quickly.
Okay, and just give us a sense, because, you know, we have an international audience. For, you know, residents of Florida, they go through this so often. This has become an everyday part of life, right, Alex?
Yeah, I would say natural Floridians, and I've been down here about 7 years now, you kind of get accustomed to it, that Tampa has not had a direct hit, I believe, in 100+ years. So maybe there is a little bit of a confidence there, but also it only takes that one time. So I would say most people here that are locals stick around.
And of course,
just like these guys.
Yeah. Oh, you can see there some people out and about as well. We heard some of our Fox 13 Tampa folks.
I see.
Yeah, we've been hearing some of our Fox 13 Tampa folks refer to people like that as lucky loos, looking around for things. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who those guys are, but yeah, people have just been wandering the streets, see different people hanging out, having little hurricane parties. So I don't know how serious people take it, but this one right now, it's tough to say, but I think the most is yet to come, because these boats that I'm by right now, I mean, the tide's not even up. We're supposed to have that high tide and the moon coming in tonight. So 2-3 a.m. is what I heard. People are tying their boats down. It could get interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, when you wake up tomorrow, what do you expect to see? I mean, you've been through this before. You had to evacuate last year. There are evacuation orders in place right now, but I mean, do you have any concern? Do you have any worry, or are you riding this out kind of like some other people there watching all of this unfold?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm going to see what happens. And we got a cooler full, some food, and I mean, hopefully make it through the night and see what happens in the morning as far as power and everything. But I'm expected to be at work tomorrow, so we'll see this out.
All right, Alex Ames there live for us in downtown Tampa. Alex, thanks so much. Stay safe out there. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate you as well. Take care.
All right, so we just wanted to get some resident reaction as well to all of this going on there in parts of Florida, like Tampa as well. You can see the rain coming down, the wind picking up. You can see there in the harbor. And you can also see some of the other shots that we have. You can take a look at this in Tampa as well. This here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and you can see the rain coming down even heavier and harder there. So we're going to be talking to some of our other reporters throughout the course of the next hour as well in Tampa to see how conditions are faring there as we all are watching Idalia make her way up the coast of Florida. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox on this Tuesday night. Like I said, we'll be in 24-hour coverage of Hurricane Idalia, and we'll bring you whether or not she will strengthen into a Category 3 as she makes landfall, whether or not she's going to weaken. So we'll bring you all of that information once it happens. If it happens, we got you here live, raw, and unfiltered like we always do. What we want to do right now is we want to go out to Fox 13 in Tampa for more of their coverage. They have their reporter station all out and about, and we are watching them really in the elements at the moment, seeing the rain pick up, seeing the wind pick up, seeing the whitecaps form on the harbor, on the ocean as well. Let's listen.
Percentage, and probably a bigger percentage in some of those really sensitive areas than happened in Hurricane Ian, with some of those areas that ended up being ground zero. Of course, I think there's been a lot more notice that this storm was likely to hit in this area compared to Ian, because I think we had some track shifts, so I understand how people process that. But we've been talking about the Big Bend now for a few days, and I think people got the message, and I think by and large, I think that they have heeded the advice.
Yeah, in fact, one county that's just south of Cedars Key here is Citrus County. We've got crews there as well. They're bracing for some high water levels that could inundate many homes in that area. In fact, Fox 13's Evan Axelbank has been there all afternoon. Joins us again live tonight. I know, Evan, it's been kind of a long day because I haven't seen much there, but things are certainly going to worsen here in the next few hours.
We are starting to feel a little bit of it, Mark, right now. In fact, we have a little bit of rain. There's maybe just a slight little breeze coming through, but we do have some rain, and you can see it now. I'm not sure if we can see it just kind of coming through those lights there that are in the parking lot that I'm standing in, but without a doubt, there is some rain coming down, and we felt some feeder bands much earlier today, maybe for 2-3 minutes at a time. This is the first very slight but sustained drizzle that we have felt. And right now I'm standing in a parking lot that is filled with people who brought their RVs here. They are going to be spending the night in this parking lot. This is a lot that doesn't normally flood, at least during, any storms that we see that are not hurricanes and not tropical storms. So people feel comfortable riding this out here. But we'll see. We don't know what to expect here, other than the fact that storm surge will be high just as that high tide comes in at around, we think, 2-3 a.m. Without a doubt, the Homosassa boat ramp, let's show you a little bit earlier, that boat ramp, does flood. And we have been there and covered floods on many occasions, even in storms that are not named. And people there are, certainly concerned. The tide has not budged since we first got here to Citrus County in the mid-afternoon. We certainly expect that it will as Idalia rolls by after midnight tonight. This is, again, an area that frequently floods in low-lying areas. The timing of this storm to hit after the early morning hours or in the early morning hours is absolutely making some people nervous.
I'll be honest, I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous because a lot of the locals that usually stay are leaving.
Given the timing of this, how does that impact things?
2 a.m.? Yeah, that's scary. I almost don't want to go to sleep.
Live right here local, a half a mile from where we're standing, and from the storm surge with the water, my place is gonna go under. I rent a place right here, so I'm gonna go to higher ground to my kid's house.
We did see some folks being evacuated earlier. Anyone in Zone A should have already evacuated. They should be long gone by now, though we did see plenty of people, just based on what people's homes look like, staying in their homes and planning apparently to ride it out in their homes, even ones who are very close to where the Homosassa River flows through Citrus County. Emergency management officials say they're prepared for 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. They're also preparing for 8 to 12 feet of storm surge. We'll see exactly how much they get. Certainly we're hoping that the storm, the eye of the storm being that far off the coast, will limit that, but we'll have to just wait and see there. Shelters are a last resort, but they are open if someone needs them. We're feeling, again, Mark, just kind of a mid-level, maybe a light to mid-level rain here in Homosassa. Certainly nothing compared to some of the storms that I've been out in the field for that have been named storms. So we're just beginning to feel this. We'll see if things start to pick up towards those more familiar hurricane feel as the storm moves further up our coast, Mark.
Sure, and this has been a particularly, unique storm. It's been different from many that we've seen, and it's hard for you because you don't have access to the radar that we have right here, but there's a lot of rain in Pinellas.
I'm listening, though. I'm listening all night,
coming.
Mark.
Well, it's coming, I promise. So be careful how much rain you wish for, because it is on the way. But I thought it was really telling, the young lady who you interviewed, who said that she thought it was interesting that quite a few of the people who normally stay left. So that tells you there's a great amount of respect up there for this thing.
Yes. Yeah, without a doubt, there is a respect for this thing, people don't know what to expect, and that's part of the problem. They may have respect for some of the forecasts, but given this area floods so often, are they going to see a flood that they've seen time and again, or is it going to be worse than that? Unfortunately, we don't know till we try.
Yeah, well, we certainly hope it's not worse than that for sure, because we know there's a lot of great people up there, and we hope everybody stays safe nonetheless. But we know you'll keep reporting for us. We appreciate it. We will see you shortly. Thanks. Evan Axelbank.
All right, so we were just showing you Fox 13 Tampa's coverage there. Evan Axelbank doing a great job. We've spoken to him several times throughout the day, and the rain really in his shot coming down much harder than it has been in our last conversations there with Evan. In the meantime, take a look at this shot there in St. Petersburg, Florida. You can see there the rain coming down. It looks like some of the white caps on the water there on the pier, and also wind as well. In the meantime, let's hear from some of our St. Petersburg officials. They held a press conference earlier today about what residents there needed to know. Let's listen.
Sepan que tienen que evacuar.
Esperamos vientos altos de más de 40 millas por hora. Es posible que lleguen a 100 millas por hora. Y aunque mañana salga el sol y uno espere que ya todo haya pasado, la marea alta va a volver a las 2 de la tarde mañana, el miércoles. Es muy importante que si usted vive en una...
All right, and of course, this doesn't even need to be said, but Florida, a huge Spanish-speaking state, and this in Spanish right now, getting out the word there for Spanish-speaking residents, what they need to know in Florida about Idalia as well. This in St. Petersburg from earlier today. We've been showing you a lot of these press conferences from places like St. Petersburg, like Hernando County, like Pinellas County, like Hillsborough County, and elsewhere, as so many of the officials we've spoken to here on Live Now just want everyone to heed the evacuation orders if you are in the evacuation zones. Now, we just spoke with Alex Ames there, my friend. He had a flight canceled. He's hunkering down, sticking it out. No doubt there are going to be people who do that, but that's not the guidance, and that's not what we've heard over the course of the last 24 hours. Take a look at also some of our X-Rad weather system as well. You can see there just how massive this storm is. And a lot of the Fox 13 Tampa folks are saying that really 2 a.m. Eastern, that's going to be the time possibly we can get a landfall reading. We can find out where it's going to be making landfall, but also that's kind of the starting point with all the rain and everything. So I'm interested in seeing how this storm is different from other storms in the past. We're going to be bringing on some of our meteorologists to talk about that in the hours to come, whether or not this is a unique storm, a different storm. That's what we're hearing from people like Paul Delgado there in Fox 13 in Tampa. So in the meantime, we're going out to Tampa. Let's just take a quick commercial break before we do just that. We'll see you in 2 minutes.
That being said, we could still see some downpours here or there tonight. So this flood threat concern is going to continue through the overnight hours in an abundance of caution from the National Weather Service. We have a flood watch in effect for the entire D.C., Baltimore metro areas through very late tonight. We have ongoing flash flood warnings through parts of Prince William, Fairfax counties, through the district into parts of Prince George's County and down into St. Mary's County in southern Maryland as well. The warnings, this is where we're seeing flash flooding happen. These warnings are going to go until 8 p.m. They could be canceled earlier, but they're going until at least 8 o'clock tonight. So bottom line, if you're under a flash flood warning, you want to avoid travel until that warning either expires or is canceled. From the National Weather Service, not only in Northeast D.C. are we hearing of some very serious water rescues going on, but into parts of Springfield and Alexandria as well. Sean, talking about the rain where we stand right now. Notice the heavy rain, the brightest colors right now into Anne Arundel County and over the bay, moving toward the Cambridge and Easton areas. Some intense rain falling over Annapolis. Some downpour action into parts of eastern Loudoun County out around Sterling. But again, the heaviest rain, thankfully, is now moving out of the area as we continue to track flash flood warnings through the evening hours. No severe thunderstorm warnings are currently in effect, but now this goes from tracking what's on the radar to talking about what happened from these storms. And you can see water a few inches deep over the intersection of Route 7 and Dagner Field Road. We have another report coming in of water rescues ongoing into parts of Virginia, into the Barcroft area. So heavy rainfall still a possibility in spots tonight. But again, we're really following kind of what happened with this first round, all of the ongoing water rescues out there, Sean and Leon.
Okay, let's get right out to those water rescues, Amelia. We're looking at one that's in the district happening along Rhode Island Avenue in Northeast.
News 4's Walter Morris is there live on the scene. So, Walter, what's happening where you are?
Well, as you've been following, right now, firefighters with DC Fire now trying to make entry to this business district dogs here on Rhode Island. As you mentioned, this area has been notorious for flooding, and just as we've been standing by, you saw the live pictures earlier, but we've watched as firefighters have sort of been making their way in through the glass barrier. Now, if you cross the street here, you can see this is a lot of moving parts here, but you can see staff here now trying to assess the situation. We know there's a lot of water inside that business. Not exactly sure the status of the dogs inside. It seems like, from what I've been able to briefly speak with the staff here, they say they have sort of been able to move some, but very, very tense moments as they deal with this flooding. You mentioned before we came out here live, the rain just so intense that it moved so fast that there really wasn't much time. If we pan over here, you can see this blue car. Just since we've been standing here, when we arrived, that water up over near towards the top of the roof, it has since come down. We've watched as the water has slowly drained, but very, very intense situation out here. And we also watched as firefighters rescued 2 people from a car just on the other side of the road here. But now we are watching as members of this community really just try and pick up the pieces, clean up, and assess the damage inside. Jim, or Sean, Leon?
It is incredible to see, Walter. I'm imagining everybody that's involved there at District Dogs is trying to make sure the animals are okay, but they must be frustrated because they went through this just a few months ago.
Yes, that's right. And in fact, if you walk with me across the street here, you can see just a little bit about what they're dealing with. Of course, we don't want to make the situation worse and insert ourselves, but if you just look here through the window, you can see just all of the water that they're dealing with and how difficult this is. Right there, you can see a firefighter sort of pushing his way through that drywall.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like about shin-deep water in that business. Now, this is just what we can see from the sidewalk out here, so you can only imagine what it's like inside. Of course, they'll have to wait to make sure it is safe for those folks to get inside, but as you can see, just a lot of people standing by really in disbelief, waiting to get the go-ahead to get inside.
Well, the good thing is that the water seems to be receding rather quickly. We were looking at live pictures there just about 10 minutes ago. If not even that long ago. The water was waist deep in that area. Now you can actually see more pavement, and people are actually walking around on drier ground, and hopefully that will allow the water inside that building to get out more quickly as well.
Absolutely. Walter Morris, thank you. Keep us updated as they get in there and they get to see how the animals inside are doing. We certainly appreciate it.
All right, that area in Northeast, not the only part of our district, part of our region right now dealing with flooding like that. We're looking at a number of areas. We'll take you out to the latest ones, the latest images we have coming from some of the flooded areas out there right after this break. You're looking here at Holmes Run in Alexandria. You can see the water there very high and moving very quickly.
Any painter can paint, but only CertaPro painters come with power. The power of a team who knows what they're doing. The power of dialing up the wow factor to 11. The power of living where you live and liking the same coffee shop you do. The power of being the talk of the cul-de-sac or the office park. If you want certainty, you want CertaPro painters. The power of pro. Start your project at CertaPro.com.
NBC4 and Telemundo 44 want you to help clear the shelters.
You will never get this kind of love any other way.
Clear the shelters. Adopt and donate today. Sponsored by your local Honda dealers.
I started Mas Panadas about 7 years ago as a small catering company, but quickly we realized there was a real business opportunity in frozen foods. So we pivoted to that, and nowadays we are building an empanada empire. M&T has supported us with everything we need. They actually come to my plants. They understand what we do. They know my team. I am a mom, and this business was created for other moms with busy families. Together with M&T, we can take over the world one empanada at a time.
At National Forest Direct, get 1 room of genuine Mohawk hardwood flooring installed for just $9.99. The floor you've always wanted for just $9.99, with no interest for a full year. Call National Forest Direct at 888-400-FLOOR. We bring the store to your door.
It just keeps getting worse. The crack keeps growing. The doors and windows stick.
This must be very frustrating. Almost no one connects that these are telltale signs that water is shifting your foundation. But it's okay. We got it.
Oh, this is done growing in this house.
Okay.
The effects of water can be surprising, but at JES, we'll do a complete home inspection for free, so you can put water back in its place. Schedule a free home inspection today.
We're back now with live pictures here in Northeast D.C. of the flooding. This is District Dogs. This is an animal kennel. You can see firefighters and rescue crews have made their way through the front of the building.
We also have warehouses filled with commodities like food, water, blankets, and medical supplies that are ready to rapidly move into the impacted area at the state's request. But we are not in this alone. We have an entire federal family that is postured to support. Our National Response Coordination Center here in Washington, D.C. is fully activated, and this means that there are several hundred staff from across the federal family that are working together to support any requests for federal assistance. We have our partners from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers who are pre-positioned to support any power restoration needs. Health and Human Services is assisting with evacuations from hospitals and assisted living centers. And the Red Cross has 50,000 meals to support the immediate needs as requested and has pre-staged shelter support to supplement the 19 shelters that are already opened by the state. And this is a really important point that I want to talk about next. It's on preparedness. And again, I really ask for all of your help to help me ensure the people in the storm's path get this message. While we are engaged with our states to prepare for the path of this storm, it's critical that the people that are in the path of this storm are also prepared. And I know that the people of Florida are no stranger to storms, and I encourage all Floridians to take this storm seriously. This storm is very strong and is expected to strengthen to a major hurricane by the time it makes landfall due to high surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. This means heavy winds, high winds, heavy rain, and a forecasted 12-foot storm surge in some of the areas along the western coast. This storm surge, this is one of the highest risk parts of a hurricane and is especially problematic along the west coast of Florida due to the underwater geography. The coastal shelf gets shallow very quickly, which increases the amount of the storm surge, putting more people at risk. Very few people can survive being in the path of major storm surge, and this storm will be deadly if we don't get out of harm's way and take it seriously. So I ask all Floridians to be vigilant and heed the warnings of your local officials. Have a plan to communicate with your family and your loved ones. Charge your cell phones, your batteries, any devices that you may have, and ensure that you are receiving emergency alerts. And most important, please listen to the warnings of local officials. If they tell you to evacuate, please do so immediately. And remember, you don't have to evacuate far. If you are in a storm surge warning area, it could mean just traveling 10 or 20 miles to get out of the most significant impact areas. It does not mean having to travel hundreds of miles to get out of the storm's path. And finally, we are all in this together. I ask that you check on your neighbors, especially those who are older adults, people living with disabilities, or may need additional assistance. But before I close, I want to provide an update on another topic that has been widely reported in recent days and asked by many of you, FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund, which as of this morning has a balance of $3.4 billion. So today, I am directing the implementation of immediate needs funding. This means that FEMA will prioritize available funding for critical response efforts to Idalia, the Maui fires, and any other extreme weather events that may come our way without interruption, while continuing to meet the immediate needs of survivors through the remaining weeks of the fiscal year. I want to repeat, we are prioritizing funding for Idalia, for the Maui fires, and any other extreme weather events that are coming our way without interruption. And I want to stress that while immediate needs funding will ensure we can continue to respond to disasters, it is not a permanent solution. Congress must work with us on the supplemental request that the administration has made on behalf of FEMA. And you are going to hear more from me on that soon. My primary responsibility at FEMA is to ensure that we are always postured to respond to any disaster and to provide the life-saving and life-sustaining support when needed. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell there at the White House press briefing earlier today, talking about what the agency has gone through over the past, month, as they are kicking it into high gear for Idalia. You see there our weather XRAD system tracking the storm itself. I do just want to give you more updates as now we are at the top of the hour, 8 o'clock here on the West Coast, 11 o'clock there in Florida. Let's put this tweet up on the screen for you because this is the latest update. We just got this in from the National Hurricane Center moments ago saying Hurricane Idalia Advisory 14. Idalia still strengthening. Forecast to be an extremely dangerous Category 4 intensity at landfall. Now, we've been covering this for, more than 24 hours. That is new because what we were told up until we brought you that news that it was projected to possibly be a Category 3. It's at a Category 2 right now, but at landfall, the National Weather Service and the National Hurricane Center are predicting it is going to be a Category 4, a major hurricane. And so if we could go back to that full screen there of the map itself, you saw there, this was about 3 or 4 minutes ago, the arc of Idalia. And you can see the timing, how strong the winds are projected to be, 110 miles per hour at this very moment. You can also see off in the very distant Atlantic, Idalia's brother, Franklin, at the moment. These two major storms happening simultaneously. So it's shaping up to be quite an active Atlantic hurricane season here in 2023. But we do want to talk about this. Remember, you were just listening to FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell talk about what the agency's response is going to be to Idalia once she makes landfall and once she dissipates there into the Atlantic. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but I got a lot of questions for our next guest, former FEMA official, Mark Neville, friend of the program here. He joins us now. We were speaking to you, Mark, earlier today. We wanted to bring you on yet again as the storm makes closer to landfall and as it intensifies as well. This is shaping up to be quite a big storm, Mark. I just wanted to get your thoughts on FEMA as a whole first. You just heard there from Administrator Criswell. She says the FEMA Emergency Disaster Relief Fund has about $3.4 billion in it right now. We know what the month of August has been like, starting off with the Maui wildfires, devastating communities there on the island of Maui like Lahaina, and now FEMA also having to deal with this. And so my question to you is the agency itself prepared? Are you confident in FEMA's abilities, and you've seen some of this criticism, are they overworked? Are they overstrapped? Are they, resource scarce, if you will? What do you make of it?
Hi, Andrew. Let me see if I can answer that question for you on multiple fronts. Let's talk about the immediate needs. What she's talking about, FEMA Administrator Deanna, is that if there's something of critical nature, life-saving or life-sustaining commodities, resource, water rescue teams, urban search and rescue teams, ambulance strike teams, all those will continue to be able to be available in this particular incident. That's not a question. Now, the question becomes, if you talk about $3.4 billion, it sounds like a lot of money. But for FEMA, that's almost like about a 10% in your bank account right now. They've asked Congress for a supplemental appropriation, which is where FEMA gets an awful lot of its funding, and they've asked for $12 billion. That's to stopgap measure until they can get into negotiations in Congress to figure out how they're going to fund it on an annual basis. So that's, they present in terms of there is an issue with cash flow. And keep in mind, the people who are out there, the emergency workers, they're there because of heart and soul, but they also get paid out of that disaster relief fund. So it's important for them to understand they'll continue to be paid and they don't have hesitation, although they would continue to work no matter what, I'm sure. But that is something, a message you want to get to them. The other part is that FEMA has been doing so much work over such a long period of time that the challenge is that their workforce is starting to become tired and deployed. Now, what they do have is a surge force, they call it. It's 10,000 employees in the federal government who have signed up in these particular instances where we have these multi-big disasters, very complex, that they're able to deploy those employees that typically are not part of FEMA. So they've got a reserve, but there are some challenges ahead, no question, Andrew.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about it, these major catastrophes, these natural disasters literally happening back to back. My immediate thought and questions for you, Mark, were how can an agency like this, adapt, be that flexible when there are increasingly, numbers of these catastrophic events happening? And you kind of outlined it and elucidated it there for us. And so FEMA is going to kick it into high gear. Let's get to Idalia now. They are going to be there on the ground in the wake, in the run-up to landfall, and in the aftermath and recovery. But we just reported that news, Mark, from the National Weather Service. It's shaping up to be a Category 4 at landfall. Yeah. What does your gut tell you now that we know that?
Well, it's starting to ramp up, right? Yeah. We only go to a Category 5, so we're at 4. So what we're talking about are 110 mile per hour winds, which that in itself wreaks havoc on the infrastructure, knocks over the utility poles, creates problems with water. The other component that's most dangerous to people is what we call storm surge. And really that's a nice way of saying, guess what? Depending upon where you are in Florida, if you're in the Big Bend area where they're predicting this to strike, you could be 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. So that means this big wall of water that's going to come in and it's going to go in miles inland and destroy everything in its wake. Now that will recede fairly quickly, but the damage is extensive and people who haven't evacuated, there's no place to go. You can't, if you're a single family home, if your home is built before 20 years ago, it is not in a position to be able to weather that type of storm. And what also happens is that, remember, as the water falls from down in the sky because of the hurricane, you have storm surge coming below. And Florida is at sea level for the most part, and you have groundwater backup. So if you try and flush your toilet or if you try and use your sink, it won't discharge because there's water backing up. So it's not a matter of just life safety. It's also an issue for residents in that area that it's not going to be livable for a period of time if this storm materializes to be as damaging as they talk about.
Okay. I've been talking to people all day here on Live Now. And the common theme is Florida knows how to do this. There's a playbook, there's a rubric, they're putting it in place. as we speak. Mark, that has to give them a leg up, you know, when they prepare for this, and whatever, however strong it's going to be, whatever damage it wreaks on Florida, that they know how to respond in the aftermath. They know how to mount a recovery operation. They know how to rescue people who might be stranded, who couldn't get out, who didn't heed the evacuation orders. Florida's done this before, but still, with the caveat that these storms are all unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get, right, Mark?
Not only what you're going to get, but where it's going to go.
Okay.
You know, we're good at predicting it, but understand that can move a little bit one way or another. And if it shifts, which it very commonly does, these hurricanes, if it shifts in the Tampa Bay, we've got a much greater population in that area. And so you could see some more extreme damage because of the populated area. Florida is good at this, no question, but sometimes Mother Nature has a way of determining what's going to take place here.
Yeah, of course, and we know and we reported that, you know, all agencies from the federal, state, and local level, they're in coordination, they're in conjunction. We know President Biden and Florida Governor DeSantis were on the phone yesterday talking about the resources that, you know, Florida needs. And also we've been hearing from Governor DeSantis and his emergency management officials, you know, almost 3 or 4 times today with updates, you know, about what Floridians need to know about this. We're going into the overnight hours, Mark. My question to you next, though, is when a storm like this hits overnight and then people wake up in the morning to see what it has wrought, how much harder is that for, you know, FEMA officials to respond to if the storm is hitting overnight rather than in the light of day?
It makes it more difficult, not just for FEMA, but first responders. Remember, it's police and fire and ambulances. You have urban search and rescue teams from Virginia, Pennsylvania. They're all staged in different areas, and I'm just touching on a tip of the resources that are out there. So it is more difficult at night. Now, keep in mind that many of those resources will not go out if there are sustained winds of 45 miles per hour or more, because then it becomes too dangerous and it's too difficult to operate the equipment. Some may try, but we also know that that's the magic number is 45 miles an hour. So if we're at a Cat 4, that's 110, those people who stayed have to understand that the likelihood of first responders getting to them is pretty minimal. It's going to take some time for them to get to you.
Okay. And, you know, obviously FEMA does such great work, but they're not a panacea. You know, they don't just, you know, pop in, shoot in there from the federal government and everything's going to be okay after a natural disaster like this. What are FEMA's limitations in the immediate aftermath of what's shaping up to be a very, very major storm? You know, is it communication? Is it planning? I mean, they must have some, you know, inhibitions, some liabilities when they want to, you know, act to help people, right?
Yes and no. Okay. And, you know, FEMA is a wonderful agency. I was proud to work for them. But keep in mind that the recovery in these disasters doesn't come from FEMA. FEMA may coordinate, may fund a good portion of it, but really it's about neighbor helping neighbor, non-governmental agencies, Salvation Army, Red Cross, all types of militaries, civic organizations, religious organizations. It's people coming to help people. That's what really makes the difference in terms of recovery and rescue. FEMA is a component to that, but it's more about what makes you proud to be an American, and that is American helping American in our time of need.
You know, Mark, that is so true. Neighbor helping neighbor. It's what we see time and time again in the wake of these disasters. You know, before we let you go, you know, during these natural disaster events, we see new faces. You know, the federal officials, the bureaucrats that are tasked with, you know, coordinating these efforts, and that is what we have seen. Deanna Criswell, we've seen her a lot on our, you know, screens, especially here on Live Now from Fox. She was just there in Maui coordinating. She's now having to coordinate the agency through Idalia. Do you know her? Have you worked with her in the past? If you have, can you give us a sense, you know, of her background, her credentials? You know, I imagine she's more than equipped to handle something like this. Have you worked with her before?
I have. I know her well. She comes from Colorado. She comes from the fire department background. She went to work for FEMA. She was a peer of mine, federal coordinating officer. There aren't very many in the country. We manage presidential disasters on behalf of the president and administrator of FEMA. She went from there and went to New York City as an emergency manager. So she's definitely talented. She understands the whole of government, bringing people to the table, solving these issues. But keep in mind, one of the things that I heard her talking about today that a little bit of a chagrin on my part was me, and this. Really, it's not that. It's about teams. It's about people. Let me tell you a story. When we set up field hospitals, because the hospitals that are in the neighborhoods are damaged, that comes from Health and Human Services. They're called disaster medical assistance teams. They're doctors and nurses that are taking vacation time from the regular jobs across the country to come help. So it's a multitude, a plethora of people who are coming to assist. She's capable and competent, but it's the people that are willing to do the work and to participate and make the sacrifice.
That's right. And Mark, in the wake of these natural disasters, competence is key. That's what you want from all rungs of government. Mark Naveau, as always, we do appreciate your insight into this. We'll probably be speaking tomorrow, if not the next day. Mark, thanks so much. Have a good night.
You too, Andrew. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, I hope you found that informative there. That's some really good insight, some really good perspective in how FEMA will act once they get on the ground there, if they're not there already, in the wake of Idalia. I just want to put up this tweet as well. We're getting new details, new information about the projected size of Idalia and its strength. This latest advisory there, Advisory 14. Idalia is still strengthening, forecast to become a Category 4 storm at landfall. Right now, Idalia is on the verge of becoming a Category 3 storm. Officials warn of life-threatening storm surge. So once it does, because it looks like it is going to become a Category 3 at any moment now, we will bring you that news. We wait for relevant authorities to tell us that. I want to read this tweet as well. Idalia currently has maximum sustained winds near 110 miles per hour. That's just 1 mile per hour away from a Category 3 storm. That's according to Hurricane Hunter aircraft data. We're getting this data in from the National Weather Service, from the National Hurricane Center as well. So let's take a quick commercial break. Let's reset here. We're going to go back out to our friends there at Fox 13 in Tampa. A lot of their reporters right now still out in the elements, and it is really picking up. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft, and we want to thank you for being with us here as we continue to cover and track Hurricane Idalia, live, raw, and unfiltered. Like we do with every story, if you're new to Live Now, that's what we do, and we're going to continue to do it. Take a look at our X-Rad weather system here. This storm is massive. Take a look at the wall there, the eye wall rather, as it makes its way up the west coast of Florida. I want to put up this tweet here. Take a look at this. We can see a better sense of the rain, the strength of the rain coming down. This from Kylie Jones at Fox 13. She says, here we go. In the city of Gulfport, wind gusts getting stronger, rain getting heavier, and we know we're live through the night on Fox 13 with updates. Let's go out to Fox 13 as we continue to track this. They have their reporters standing by. Let's listen.
Updates when we come right back.
All right, and we did just catch them going to commercial. We'll catch them in just a moment. They have, like I said, their reporters standing by in all parts of the Tampa region. In the meantime, though, we do want to listen to some of the other updates from some of the other counties that are going to be most directly impacted by this as well, including Manatee County in Florida. Let's listen.
We'll try and get power linemen out as quickly as we can, but we don't want people in their way. We want to stay clear out of their way so that we can restore power and restore the county to its full operating level as soon as humanly possible. So with that, I'll turn things over to our Public Safety Director, Jody Fisk.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just as a reminder, we have issued mandatory level A evacuations. That is all mobile homes, manufactured, and RVs. So please, if you've not left, take the opportunity now, gather what you need. You can go to one of our shelters. We currently have 3 shelters that are open for the general population: Freedom Elementary, Mills Elementary, and Miller Elementary. Currently at Freedom, we do have 129 evacuees. There are 91 evacuees at Mills and 94 at Miller. Please, again, if you have not left, take what you need. Make your way to a shelter, to a friend, to a family member. Do what you need to keep yourself and your family safe. Excuse me. If you are choosing not to go to one of our shelters and you are going to seek evacuation elsewhere, tens of miles, you don't need to drive to the Florida-Georgia line, tens of miles away from evacuation level A. Make sure that you are comfortable, that you are safe, and ride out the storm. And again, please pay attention to the surge. Tomorrow morning when the winds die down is not going to be the time to try to go home. Pay attention to all of our updates that are coming from public safety. Another reminder for everyone, there will be no trash pickup today or tomorrow, and recycling and yard waste is canceled for the week. If your trash pickup day was today, you will get picked up Thursday. Thursday's trash pickup will be on Friday. Friday's trash pickup will be on Saturday. You can also go to our website to check for all of those updates. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Director and Emergency Management Chief Steve Litzschauer.
Good afternoon, Steve Litzschauer, Deputy Director of Public Safety. I want to bring to light some of the important actions that we've been doing. We have put in place today our 7 first-in teams strategically placed throughout the county. What these teams are is Public Works, Fire, EMS, law enforcement, to open up the roadways if we have downed trees. Florida Power and Light, Preco Power is with them, so they're in place. Earlier today, Public Safety and our transportation team helped evacuate 116 patients from a downtown assisted living facility to one of our county general population shelters. Please don't wait until the last minute. Now is the time to evacuate. As Director Fisk said, evacuate tens of miles, not hundreds of miles, but now is the time to do this. We do not know yet exactly when or what the storm's going to do. We know we're going to get surge. We know we're going to get rain. We're worried about flooding. The thing with the flooding is the majority of that surge and flood comes after the eye of the storm has gone by. So there'll be a delay of those flooded roads, as it's been mentioned by the chair and the director. If you cannot see the roadway, do not drive through the roadway. We've already been in communication with all the cities, the island communities, about the roads being flooded, what our actions will be. If a road is flooded, it's closed. We're concerned about the surge of 4 to 7 feet, when that will come upon, and we will see winds of over 35 miles an hour or more. If you feel safe with that kind of surge and you're going to stay in place, then you're going to have to stay in place, because once the winds reach 35 miles an hour or more, or the roads are flooded, there's no way of emergency responders to get to you. So in doubt, evacuate now. If in doubt, move now. You have a very short window of opportunity. When it gets dark, you not be able to see the roadways. We don't know what the winds are going to do. So please, if you are going to evacuate, do it now before it gets dark. For more information, as has been mentioned, you can go to our website, mymanatee.org, or you can sign up at that website for Alert Manatee. Thank you.
You have any questions?
Yes, you said the county is currently operating at EOC 1. What exactly does that entail here at your office?
A level 1 activation is 24-hour staffing, so we've actually been at that level since yesterday. We have 2 shifts, an Alpha Bravo shift. Every emergency support function is providing 24-hour coverage at the desk. So really since yesterday, we have been on constant conference calls. We've been in direct contact with the state emergency management as well as our federal partners. So it's 24 hours until the storm passes and we are sure that it is safe for residents to return back to their homes and the shelters are clear.
Currently, there's 3 shelters open. How is that decision made to only open 3?
Based on the number of population in the affected areas and what the shelters can hold.
If the need arises, you're certainly open to opening more?
Absolutely.
What are some of the areas that you're most concerned about with this storm?
The coastal areas are definitely going to see the bigger impact. The storm has a very, very large wind field, so we expect to see wind impacts throughout the entire county. I would also encourage everyone, please get registered for the alerts. Due to the side of the storm that we're looking to expect, we are expecting to see some tornadic activity. So those alerts will go out as soon as we receive them from the National Weather Service. The coastal counties, or coastal area, however, will definitely see the higher wind gusts and they will see the surge.
Talk about the importance of having these teams that were mentioned that are, I guess, throughout the entire county, that I think consist of the sheriff's office.
The first in teams. Excuse me. Once the storm passes, the wind dies down, and it's light out, those teams are responsible to go in and make sure that the roads are clear. So if there are down power lines, if there are trees in the way, any kind of debris, they actually make it passable for first responders. And with the power companies there, we're also able to clear any down power lines and make sure those lines are not active.
What message do you give to people in these mobile homes, manufactured homes, or RVs who are deciding to just, stay and not take these evacuation orders?
I would urge them to reconsider. If they are choosing to stay, I would highly recommend making sure all of your mobile devices are fully charged. Make sure that you have a cell signal. Call 911 if you find yourself in need. If you decide that you've made a mistake and you didn't evacuate, please do not hesitate to call 911. We will mark your address and make sure that we have noted where you are, so that when it is safe for responders to come out, we can go to that location and make sure that you are okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. After the door. Yeah, go upstairs too.
Okay, so we just wanted to let you listen in yet again to that update out of Manatee County, Florida from earlier this afternoon. We want to take a quick commercial break, though when we come back, we'll be showing you more updates from some of the meteorologists we have been relying on to carry us through this storm. We were just told by the National Weather Service that Hurricane Idalia could make landfall as a Category 4 storm. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Off new backpacks and school supplies at any of our Northern Virginia branches now through August 31st.
In DC4 in Apple Federal Credit Union, getting you ready for school.
The injury law firm Greenberg & Betterman hopes tomorrow's sunrise brings you a great new day.
Happening right now, we're tracking flash flooding in the district. Walter Morris is at the scene. He's water moved in fast around this doggy daycare northeast, forcing some crews to go in and try to save these dogs.
Walter, I know we've been watching the rescues all for the last 45 minutes or so. What is the latest? What have you learned?
So we're still waiting for an update. We just heard that the deputy fire chief is here, and we expect a briefing from DC Fire in the next few minutes just to give us more of a sort of breakdown on exactly the situation they encountered. But if you take a look here, just so we can sort of give you perspective about just how high that water was and how fast it moved. When we arrived here just after 5:30, water at the roof of that blue sedan, and we watched as firefighters on the boat forced their way in to district dogs. Now, we do have some video from not too long ago, if we can go to that and just show you some of those tense moments out here. We watched after firefighters forced their way through the drywall inside the water, knee-high here at District Dogs on Rhode Island Avenue, and then we watched one by one as staff as well as DC Fire personnel pulling out some of those dogs, some of them soaked. Now, at this time, we are still waiting for an update on exactly how many dogs were inside of this business. But of course, you know, this area notorious for flooding, and this same location we witnessed or we reported on a flood last year. So some of the pet owners that we've been talking to out here, a few of them we watched as they reunited with their pets.
Still at a Cat 2, 1 mile an hour away from being a Cat 3, but we're now expecting Cat 4 at landfall tomorrow morning.
Yeah, so we're looking at that now, potentially getting to 130 mile per hour sustained winds hitting the Big Bend region. Why this is so important, Kelly, is because if you're not familiar with this region, it's unprecedented. They've never experienced a major hurricane, but forget that. Northern Florida, by the way, when you look back at all the records, Category 4 or 5, there's only been one storm ever recorded, 2018 Hurricane Michael. But that was on the western side of Apalachicola, which is totally different than the eastern side, which is marshy and rugged, and it will allow that water to really drive inland, and why there's so many concerns for the Panhandle.
Also, the shape of the Big Bend acts like a ladle, right? It acts like a scoop, and it just scoops up all of that water. So many things to talk about tonight.
I mean, look at this. We've been showing this visual at least for the last 4 to 5 hours, and this is the southernmost point of the continental U.S. This is Key West. And you see the rough surfs crashing over the wall, spitting up that water, and they're expecting only 3 feet of storm surge. I say only because when you compare that to what's going to happen in the Big Bend region, where they could get up to 16 feet of storm surge. So here's the latest advisory coming in, and this is the 11 p.m. one. You'll notice the change is the pressure millibar continues to drop. That is another sign that this continues to strengthen. And because what you're seeing on radar, you have a well-defined eye, this is something that we will get a positional update on this each and every hour now until it does make landfall. Then we're going to use radar sites to continue to give you that update on not only the position, but the movement of this storm. We do have hurricane hunters that are flying through this. Now, as Kelly had said off the top, we're waiting for this to become a major hurricane. It has to get to at least 111 miles per hour. So we're 1 mile per hour short of that. But because of the thermodynamics and the environment that's in place in the northern Gulf, it is likely to not only be a Cat 3, but a Cat 4 now when it does make that landfall. Rapid intensification, it's done that and then some. What you have to see is that the sustained winds are 35 miles per hour or greater within a 24-hour time frame. Well, this is now 40 miles per hour greater than what we had 24 hours ago, and it's because of the environment, as we had said. There's low wind shear, very warm waters. Now, notice this. Because of the intensity you'll have at landfall now, that means stronger impacts expected downstream of this, meaning into southern Georgia and into the Carolinas before it kind of dumps out into the Atlantic later on through the weekend. So as we zoom in, this is Apalachicola hidden underneath here. All right, so this region is considered Nature's Coast and the Big Bend. And so it's going to drive all this water inland, and that's what's going to force that storm surge. If you need to evacuate, which so many have done, the really advice has been don't travel hundreds of miles. Go tens of miles, go to Tallahassee, the state capital. They're 200 feet above sea level, but then you got to be prepared for the wind impact now. And this is a heavily wooded area. Widespread power outages are anticipated because of this. What's the driving mechanism? This cold front, which is driven by the jet stream right here. That's what's forcing this back towards the northeast through the Big Bend region and pushing through into areas like Savannah, into South Carolina, impacting spots like Myrtle Beach. This high pressure that's over the Bahamas, or actually just to the east of there, is a steering mechanism, and which will keep the storm surge at play for areas along the Carolinas and could even impact your Labor Day weekend plans with rough surf and rip current risk. So tropical storm warnings now issued for not only South Carolina and Georgia, but also North Carolina, something we will be watching very closely in the days to come. Let's bring in Fox weather meteorologist Bob Van Dillen. He's live in Clearwater Beach, Florida, with an area that's really susceptible to storm surge. And Bob, I think something we haven't touched upon recently is that this coincides with the supermoon, right? And that poses a big problem.
Yeah, it sure does. And that's exactly what we're looking at here, Steve. It's a great point. If you look behind me, see the darker shade right there? That's where the water's coming up right now. So we're about an hour or so away from high tide here. If that storm surge decides to come within the next 2 hours, that's going to add the 2.5 to 3 foot that's already there with the tide coming in. So that will definitely bring a nice 4 to 6 foot storm surge right up the beach, and it could reach us right here. So that's what we're thinking is going to happen. But the wind's going to have to shift around a little bit before that happens. But just looking at that, the water's definitely come up, right? I mean, you guys have seen it for the last hour or so. So now that we can see where those waves are starting to end up, it's half the beach so far from where we were when we first got here. That's the way it looks. And also interesting to note, if you pop up that radar, you can see what I'm talking about. There's a big old squall about 20 miles to the southwest of us. That's a big feeder band. Within that squall line, they're talking about water spouts coming down right there and 50-knot wind gusts. And you're talking 50-knot wind gusts, about 58-mile-per-hour winds. That's immediately offshore by about 20 miles or so from us. That looks like it's just going to scrape in here, probably miss us with the strongest core of the winds, but we're still going to get the winds pick up once that rain band comes through. It's spiraling rain band connected up. Once that comes through, rain's going to pick up once again. It's been dry for the last about 15 minutes or so. Once that comes in, man, the faucet gets turned on again, the winds pick up, and it just becomes tropical in nature. Right now, Steve, it feels like a breezy day at the beach, even though clearly we're in between rain bands.
Yeah, and Bob, you're talking about that squall line. It's setting up right over the Sunshine Skyway Bridge there, and we know we're looking at the potential threshold. If it gets to 40 miles per hour, they're going to have to shut down that bridge, right? So that's the concern is, yes, you're between bands, but the wind is going to really start to, potentially create major problems already, even well before landfall.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You've got that right. It's like the 1-2 punch, right? You're waiting for the winds to shift so you can see the storm surge come in. You don't want that to happen because as soon as that happens, another squall comes in. It picks up the winds over 40 miles per hour. You can't cross the bridges for sure. And, of course, visibility goes down. You don't want to be out here. I was just looking beyond us. We're at a parking lot's behind us, and about 200 yards out that way is the Clearwater Bay. That's had the wind on it all day long, pumping it towards us. So that is riding higher on our side. It's actually a small little storm surge off of that Clearwater Bay, but that's not even from the stuff coming off the Gulf of Mexico. That's just from the water itself being pushed over here. We've got some flooded streets out here from the heavy rain, but it's starting to go down as well because, as you know, living in Florida, Water comes up, it drains down pretty quickly around here. I think we're going to see that rain come in, and we're going to see the issue with the flooded out streets at least a couple more times tonight.
Bob, we're showing the Sunshine Skyway Bridge right now, and the water's not even be able to stick to the road because of how strong the winds are. It's like a pressure washer that's just coming through.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so please be prepared. Like you had said, that's about 20 miles south of you, and it's coming in hard and fast. We'll keep you up to date. We'll keep you safe as well, Bob. Thank you for that update from Clearwater Beach.
Shoot me a text.
All right,
yeah, shoot me a text. Make sure that I'm not standing out here, splashing around in the water.
Hey, we're going to protect you with everybody else, too, during this storm. I'll keep you up to date. But, Kelly, we got to talk about, what we've already seen with some of the reports coming in ahead of landfall.
I will say it looks like the bridge is open, though. I just saw a car zoom on through. Didn't look like a utility truck or a government truck or anything. He was going a little fast, if you were to ask me. But let's talk about the winds, what we've seen so far. We have already seen some wind gusts that are comparable to what you see during a severe thunderstorm warning. And a 50, 60 mile per hour wind during a thunderstorm, a severe thunderstorm, is enough to activate the emergency alert system and ping your phone. So we're not seeing 125 mile per hour winds. We're not going to see that until we get closer to landfall, potentially 130 mile per hour winds. But we are displaced from the center of the storm, and we're still seeing winds this strong. And especially with all the rain out there, what that does is it softens up the soil a little bit, making it easier for trees to actually topple over. Palm trees are, they can do okay during those strong winds, but there are plenty other types of trees in Florida. It's not just palm trees. And when you get that looser soil because of the rain, the wind can topple it over more easily. And we are seeing winds that are plenty strong enough for that, especially in the Keys. We have 21 strong wind reports. We also have a lot of ASOS readings. That's an automated surface observing system. It's basically just a weather center that's sitting outside. 40, 50, almost up to 60 mile per hour wind gusts in some of these locations. Daytona Beach Shore, here's a storm report. I haven't looked at this one yet. 68-year-old female visitor was witnessed struggling in the surf after rescue and attempts to revive. She was transported in an unresponsive condition to a local hospital. I'm really sad to see that, but dangerous, dangerous conditions out there, especially with the storm surge, Steve.
Just shows you from coast to coast the kind of impact that we will be seeing. Let's take a moment now to time out this storm. And so what we're going to do is kind of show you the movement, because this is beyond Florida. This is going to impact southern Georgia and into the Carolinas. And so that's why we do have that flood watch that's in place. So we're showing you this. Yes, it's going to be on the Gulf side of Florida, but notice that it's beyond, and it's something that Bob just brought up. It's not just the storm surge moving in, but the rain. You could be seeing up to a foot of rain in some of those areas that could be getting that massive storm surge. So a foot of rain on top of this, and by the way, this is tropical rain where the rain rate is coming down 4 to 5 inches per hour. So that's what triggers it so quickly. And that heavy rainfall pushes through, and notice that it's inland, right? It's not just the coastal areas of Georgia, like Savannah, and then Myrtle Beach and those areas like the Low Country, but you're going to get Columbia and Charlotte. They will also see the heavy rainfall later on this week. So there's the available moisture, and this is why it's so potent, is because you have the northern Gulf, right? It's prime. But even though as it moves inland, this is such a big storm that now it's tapping into portions of the Atlantic and the Gulf Stream. Those outer bands are circling back through. Counterclockwise rotation allows this kind of fire hose effect to continue through Georgia and into the Carolinas. And you'll see that whenever you start getting these darker shades, that's the higher end of the availability. Even though this is now no longer a hurricane, you're looking at this wind potential diminishing, the rain component of this. The water is still pushing onshore, impacting areas like Wilmington, up towards Raleigh, and of course the Outer Banks. There's the flash flood threat locked in along the I-95 corridor and then the interior portion as well. Very likely stretch through Wednesday and then into Thursday for North Carolina. There's Tallahassee. That's going to be the state capital. They are going to be taking a major wind event out of this, and it's expected for tomorrow morning. Because of the speed of the storm, hopefully that will aid in some of those numbers being decreased because it's moving so fast, but still with a tropical system, the I-10 corridor, easily expecting nearly a half foot of rain, and that's going to cause problems in and of itself. Look at areas like St. Mark's. That's the spot, Kelly, where you look at those coastal areas. Not only are they getting that torrential rain that comes down, but then the storm surge on top of that. it's just making this a worst case scenario.
It just gets worse and worse as we go throughout the night. Fox Weather's Hurricane HQ. Stay with us as we bring you continuous coverage on Idalia, and download the Fox Weather app for updates and alerts on the storm's path. We'll have more on Idalia when Fox Weather comes right back.
specifically in Fort Myers Beach and those areas that were impacted a year ago. Again, want to let those people know that we're going to be there as soon as we can get to you guys tomorrow morning. We will have some of our southern staged assets in there to help you guys and evaluate some of that damage. If you haven't evacuated, you're north of Fort Myers, you're up into the central Gulf Coast, northern Big Bend area. If you have not evacuated, you need to do that right now. You need to drop what you're doing. You need to go to your room, pack up, pack your things, and get to safety. If you need power, you need to get to safety. You need to evacuate right now. We are going to experience historical flood surge up into the Big Bend area. This is nothing to be messing around with. We were in the vehicle traveling with the governor when I got the phone call that there was going to be potentially 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. Put that in perspective, that's 3 foot higher than what was predicted for Hurricane Ian in Fort Myers Beach. So please heed the warnings. If you're in that Big Bend area, your emergency managers are calling for an evacuation, please do it. I was on the phone again with Levy County, John McDonald. He is greatly concerned about Cedar Key. 12 to 13 feet of storm surge there. We've got to act, and we got to act now. We have launched our state assistance information line, or also referred to as cell line. That's number is 1-800-342-3557. Again, that's 1-800-342-3557. Residents can call the cell line and find out about how to prepare before, during, and after a hurricane, road closures, alternate routes, available open shelters, shelters designed for medically dependent individuals, and reentry information once it is safe to return. You can also, of course, get up-to-date information on our website at floridadisaster.org/updates. I know that we were with the CFO, and I would reiterate what he said earlier today. Take pictures. Take pictures of your home now. See what it looks like now before the storm is here, so that, again, when it happens, if you have damage, you then take pictures. You have before and after pictures. Taking pictures of the interior portion of your home as well, not just the exterior portion of your home. And then please do not be taken advantage of after the storm. Make sure that you are You don't do any cash transactions. You don't sign anything. If you've got any type of issues when it comes to insurance, you can always call the CFO's office at 1-877-MY-FL-CFO, and he will certainly help you out through all of that. So please heed warnings. Do smart things. Please evacuate right now if you need to do so. And again, Governor, as always, thank you for your leadership on this.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Governor, for your leadership and for your support of your Florida National Guard. Director Guthrie, thank you for your tremendous work and of your team, the great work you're doing to ready our state and to protect Florida citizens. The Florida National Guard is fully mobilized with over 5,500 soldiers and airmen deployed or deploying. We are ready to provide humanitarian assistance, search and rescue, route clearance, and security missions throughout the area of operations in partnership with our state and local agencies. Over the past 48 hours, the Florida National Guard has been positioning personnel and units in strategic locations near expected landfall areas to assist impacted counties as rapidly as possible. The Florida National Guard's response efforts are organized around 4 task forces. Task Force 53, our main effort, is operating in the western coastal counties with 1,600 guardsmen. Task Force 164 is prepared to support counties in the central and northeast Florida with over 1,200 guardsmen. Task Force 83 is prepared to provide aviation support for search and rescue operations and commodity distribution. And Task Force 50 is prepared to provide transportation, sustainment, and communication support with over 1,100 guardsmen as needed. In addition, we have guardsmen currently manning state logistic response centers and other warehouses with over 200 guardsmen throughout the state. We're supporting over 20 county emergency operations centers with liaison specialists, and we continue to work mission requirements prior to landfall, including setting up Tiger Dam containment systems around Manatee County Hospital. The Florida National Guard currently has on hand 2,400 vehicles available to include high mobility and high water vehicles, 14 rotary wing aircraft with additional aviation assets coordinated with neighbor states through mutual aid agreements, and 23 small watercraft to support search and rescue operations and delivery of supplies in flooded areas. I shared Governor DeSantis' remarks, and I want to thank our neighboring Guard states for their assistance and willingness to provide additional assets during this critical time. And lastly, I'm proud of the quick response of your National Guard soldiers and airmen, and know they are grateful for the opportunity to serve the citizens of our great state. Thank you.
Okay.
I am Colonel Brian Smith, Director of Law Enforcement for Florida Fish and Wildlife. And Governor, I want to thank you for your leadership and support during this emergency, as well as Director Guthrie, your support to FWC and making sure we have all the tools we need to get this job done. FWC has the officers and equipment and experience, as well as the training, to be effective in the immediate hours following a hurricane. We want to remind everyone, just as has been said before, please heed any warnings, and if you are in evacuation zones, please evacuate. FWC has staged 2 rapid response teams just outside the projected path of Idalia with nearly 50 personnel, and emergency response equipment. We'll be bringing high-wheel vehicles and boats capable of negotiating this high-water environment, and our officers are well-versed with the necessary precautions in this post-storm environment. FWC will be there to help everyone. We're coming to help you along with our brothers and sisters and first responders. We're honored to be called upon to assist with this, and following our immediate response, we'll have the resources and personnel to assist in recovery efforts for as long as we're needed. And thank you again, Governor, for all your support and leadership.
Okay.
I'm Colonel Gary House with your Florida Highway Patrol. FHP has approximately 300 troopers statewide on standby, ready to assist and respond as needed as the impacts of Hurricane Idalia are felt. Currently, we have approximately, again, 300 troopers on Alpha Bravo shifts. In other words, 12-hour shifts that are rotating with no days off in preparation for the response to the storm. Our troopers are maintaining high visibility along our interstate highways and all our evacuation routes, especially our interstate rest areas. We're coordinating with our local sheriff's offices, and we're assisting specifically in Taylor, Dixie, and Levy counties, and notifying residents in evacuation areas to evacuate and heed that warning. We're coordinating with our FDOT partners, monitoring our roadways and our bridges to make sure they're safe for travel. As the governor mentioned, once speeds reach up to 40 miles an hour, we're going to shut those causeways and those bridges down. So now is the time, as Director Guthrie said, now is the time to heed those warnings and evacuate if you're in an evacuation area. We're going to continue to monitor. We advise you to also monitor your local emergency management officials and local sheriffs and follow their directions as they put out releases and directions for you to follow as the storm approaches and the impacts are felt. After the storm passes, I would encourage you not to go out and sightsee. Give first responders room to work, room to respond, and room to assist those in need. As you travel our highways, if you've become disabled, your vehicle becomes disabled, try to get out of the traffic ways. If you're unfortunately involved in a collision, try to clear the roadway and dial star FHP or 347. Star FHP or 347 if you need assistance. And if it's an immediate emergency, always dial 911. Governor DeSantis, thank you for your leadership, your support of your Florida troopers and law enforcement in general. Director Guthrie, also thank you for your support. Florida has great leadership, and we're proud to serve with you. Thank you.
Okay, so be ready for impact. It's going to happen. We'll be prepared for losing power, of course, and we've been stressing that over the past many days. This could have really significant storm surge on those coastal areas alongside the Big Bend, and storm surge of this magnitude is not something we've ever seen in this part of Florida in any of our lifetimes. So please take the appropriate precautions and just understand that this is something that absolutely can be life-threatening if you were in one of those areas that is in the coastal or low-lying areas when you're met with this type of storm surge. Okay, any questions?
Quick question about to follow up on the insurance thing, because so many people are worried about it right now. What did you want to see that the legislature would not adopt in the current insurance reforms we passed back in May?
Look, we can talk about the policy stuff. I mean, I think right now we're focusing on the response, protecting people, and then getting what we need to go there. And this is about execution right now. We obviously can have different policy debates when the time's appropriate, but this is what we have to do to be able to save lives, be able to respond, be able to get people back on their feet.
Can you kind of talk about how many people are heeding those evacuation notices, how many people are under those evacuation notices right now?
So I'll let Kevin jump in if I say anything wrong, but I mean, I think on Cedar Key, the vast majority have done it.
Yes,
and I think that I don't think it's 100%, but I think it was a lot. I think it was a big percentage, and probably a bigger percentage in some of those really sensitive areas than happened in Hurricane Ian, with some of those areas that ended up being ground zero. Of course, I think there's been a lot more notice that this storm was likely to hit in this area compared to Ian, because I think we had some track shifts. So I understand how people process that. But we've been talking about the Big Bend now for a few days, and I think people got the message. And I think by and large, I think that they have heeded the advice. So I would say way more have heeded than have not heeded.
Obviously, the storm is going to be pretty significant for Leon County with all the big trees we have. We haven't had a big hurricane, if not ever. I guess, is the state contemplated a contingency plan if Leon County is not able to run properly for the long term? I mean, there's people saying we could lose power for weeks, months.
So we have spoken with the mayor and recommended that their utility accept the mutual aid, and I think he wants to accept it. I think he understands that could be useful. I think he understands that they want to get the power back on as quickly as possible. This utility here locally, has had some trouble on some of these situations with weaker storms in the past. I know in 2016. So we have the support here, and we want it to be used. So I think the city is going to welcome it. And that's why we have these people pre-staged, because we understand when you have a situation like this, I mean, hopefully nobody ends up in a life-threatening situation in Leon County at all. But even if some do, the vast majority of people are not going to be in that. The vast majority of people are not going to have their homes destroyed with this storm. But if they're without power for 2 weeks, I mean, that's not ideal. So we have the resources there. We want to bring those to bear. There will be some difficulty with all the trees, and there's going to be a lot of debris. We have our guys that are going to be willing to help with that as well. But we understand it's important to get this stuff going again. So there's a lot of resources available for both the county and the city to be able to help. And so we recommend that they take us up on that offer. All right, well, we will be here bright and early tomorrow, and we will be hunkering down here as the storm passes through this part of the state of Florida. Then once it passes, you know, we're likely going to go down and be in the areas where you've had the most impacts and start the recovery, relief and recovery process as soon as this storm exits the state of Florida. Thanks.
All right, you were listening there to the latest update from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. That was earlier today, of course, advising people in multiple parts of the northern side of Florida to be prepared for Idalia. Let's take a closer look at that live weather radar right now. Just take a look at this. You can just really see the magnitude of this storm. I mean, over the weekend, it was just a tropical depression, and it has slowly been gaining that strength to the point that the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, now saying that it could make landfall in Florida as a Category 4. And this is due to the fact that it is so slow moving, as you can see there. So it will continue to pick up strength in the next few hours. It's expected to make landfall early Wednesday morning. Thank you, everyone, for being with us all day as we are on